Chapter 1176. Your Highness. A row of aboriginals in neat leather armor greeted him respectfully. Guangxia Literature Network. Netran Bachin nodded with a smile and looked at the short and strong young man at the front of the group. He seemed to have thought of something and his eyes were filled with reverie. He smiled and asked, "One Piece. Principal." The young man smiled sheepishly. This young man was Chao Zhong, the freshman who almost dropped out of school after watching One Piece. More than 10 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Ren Bachin lamented as if he could still vaguely see the scene of that young man standing in front of him and saying that he wanted to drop out of school. Although his great dream of dropping out of school to become a pirate king didn't come true, it planted a seed in his heart. Now that seed had finally taken root and sprouted. After learning that the imperial court wanted to build steel ships to explore the sea, he volunteered to join. Introduce them. Ren Bachin smiled. Yes. This is the Conqueror and that's the Conqueror. It's 142 meters long, 12.9 meters wide, 3,380 tons of displacement, 3,760 tons of full load, 19 knots of speed. It can carry 122 people. It has a top speed of 19 knots, a range of 12 knots and can last up to 30 days. As he listened to Chao Zhong, Ren Bachin walked closer and reached out to touch the steel shell of the Conqueror. It was cold to the touch and had a little fishy smell. After boarding the ship along the gangway, the view in front of them suddenly widened. The blue ocean extended to the end of their line of sight and gradually turned black. How much do we understand about the troposphere now? Ren Bachin asked as he looked into the distance. The troposphere was a sharp blade in this world's ocean and also a barrier that blocked the footsteps of humans and confined them firmly on land. The troposphere generally appeared a few kilometers to tens of thousands of meters away from the coast. From the outside there seemed to be no trace of it at all. However, a few meters below the surface of the sea was full of chaotic and turbulent undercurrents, as if countless hands were tearing at it. Ships that entered the troposphere were almost unable to escape. Even steel-hulled steamships would find it difficult to escape if they were caught in it. Needless to say, there were countless strange marine creatures in the troposphere, which were also a great danger to ships. The observatory's research institute has placed observation devices underwater several times. Although they soon lost contact with the strange water, it didn't mean that they didn't discover anything. I don't know what the undercurrent in the troposphere contains, but it has a slight effect on the signal. Also, the undercurrent is very fast. In a short time, the observation device will be swept to a place where the signal can't reach. Under the ocean, there seems to be something affecting the water flow. We found many whirlpools underwater, which is an important reason for the formation of the undercurrent. The ocean is very deep, and there seems to be a huge crack under the water 10,000 meters away, as if it was cut by a sharp axe. At present, we don't know the extent of the troposphere. The detection range on the surface of the sea has exceeded 300 kilometers, but it still hasn't broken through the troposphere. Moreover, there are turbulent undercurrents in the air above the sea beyond 300 kilometers, and some extreme weather often occurs. The observation station has sent several drones to explore the outer area, but they were destroyed beyond 300 kilometers. Ren Bachin had already understood most of the situation, but he still wanted to hear more from Chao Zhong. Let's go and take a look. Let me see how good you guys are, Ren Bachin said. Yes. Chao Zhong proudly ordered everyone to prepare. Have all of you learned how to swim? Ren Bachin suddenly asked with a smile. Chao Zhong's expression froze for a moment before he embarrassedly said, I suffered a lot in order to learn how to swim. Most of the aboriginals were landlubbers and had the temperament of a steelyard. They sank to the bottom once they entered the water. It was fine if they were close to the shore as they could stabilize their bodies and walk out of the water. Otherwise they would die. This batch of marine pioneers suffered a lot on this and drank a lot of seawater. Not long after, the Conqueror sounded its whistle. It's actually moving. Tsk, it can actually move without sails and oars. Relying on the waves. It's all thanks to the waves. Many onlookers on the shore were surprised to see the ironclad warship, which had been docked for a few days, suddenly moving. The ship didn't go too far, only about 9 kilometers away. When they turned back they could still see the shore, so the ship stopped. At this time, the ocean had already taken on a dark blue color, and a little further ahead, the ocean had already turned black. Your Highness, the troposphere is just ahead. Ren Bachin nodded and stared at the surface of the ocean in front of him. Apart from the change in color, he didn't see much difference. Although there were waves on the surface of the ocean, it seemed relatively calm. Release the marker, Rinpoche instructed. Get ready to release the marker, Qiao Zhong immediately shouted. A moment later, a red wooden ball with a diameter of 2 meters was released from the ship. This wood was very dense and didn't reach the bottom of the water after being thrown into the water. Soon Rinpoche saw that the ocean seemed to be enraged. Although there weren't many changes on the surface, the wooden ball under the water began to move rapidly and irregularly at a high speed. This was the effect of the undercurrent under the water. In just a moment, the wooden ball suddenly shattered as if it had been hit by a heavy hammer. It turned into countless pieces of wood that continued to float in the water. This was the power of the undercurrent. Under the power of countless undercurrents, it could even deform steel. Huge waves suddenly appeared on the surface of the ocean, and a huge object suddenly emerged from the water. It looked like an octopus tentacle that extended more than 30 meters out of the water. It twisted and swayed on the surface of the water, and there was a huge mouth full of sharp teeth at the top. This kind of piece of firewood is everywhere under the water, Qiao Zhong said. My strength isn't particularly strong, but there are too many of them. This wasn't a tentacle of a huge monster, but its body looked like this. After finishing his sentence, he picked up a bow from the side, drew it and knocked an arrow. An arrow pierced through the air and pierced the swaying tentacle, immediately creating a big hole. Blue blood sprayed everywhere. The surface of the sea suddenly churned, and the tentacle frantically slapped in all directions. Even a big hole wasn't considered fatal to this kind of creature. Compared to its body size under the water, the body size of this huge monster on the surface only took up 1/3 of its body size. A piece of firewood? Rinpoche turned his head doubtfully. This name sounded awkward no matter how he listened to it. Hey, this is what we call them in private. The people at the observatory call them heterogeneous leeches. Qiao Zhong laughed. Are there many of these things under the water? Yes, they are everywhere. With such a body size they should need a lot of food, right? Do they have so much food? There are more marine life under the water than expected, especially those undercurrents. Although they are turbulent, they also suck in a large number of fish from afar. How do these things not get torn apart by the undercurrents under the water? Rinpoche listened to Qiao Zhong's explanation and nodded gently from time to time. He looked into the distance and sighed. It seemed like there was still a long way to go to solve the mystery of the ocean. However, this wasn't the most important thing. At present, the most important thing was to find a route along the coastline. As for whether they could achieve their goal, no one knew now. Although the ocean looked very deep, there was a troposphere outside and a coastline inside. There was only such a curved path for ships to pass through, and no one knew if they would get stuck by a submerged reef somewhere. Fupin Chinese. Chapter 1177. Rinpoche didn't stay long in Wangjing. He stayed for 2 days to understand the situation before returning. He also left behind a batch of new detection equipment that he brought back from Earth. There was a mosquito-sized flying detector with a detection range of more than 10 kilometers and an underwater detector with a detection range of 5 kilometers. These two new equipment would increase their chances of success in this exploration. Yu Qing ran away again? Rinpoche returned to the palace and shook his head when he heard the news. Erhua was getting older, so Rinpoche couldn't keep calling her by her nickname. Although he paid attention to her from time to time, he didn't discipline her too much. As long as she passed the curriculum, she could do whatever she wanted. Erhua was straightforward and chivalrous. Although she grew up in the palace, she had strong habits of the pugilistic world. She liked to wield weapons and make friends, but she didn't like politics. After all, this world was completely different from Earth. Rinpoche didn't expect her to put much effort into politics. Moreover, with the Empress's strength, she would live for at least 300 years, and it was unknown whether Erhua would inherit the throne. If she put too much effort into politics, she might really cause trouble in the future. This was something Rinpoche didn't want to see, so he didn't force her when he saw that she didn't like it. At this time, Erhua didn't know that her father was back. She was calling her friends in the Shanhui restaurant, banging on the table and singing. Erhua's 5 notes wasn't complete. Although her voice was good, it was a different matter when she sang it. Fortunately, with everyone around, it didn't stand out and was very lively. Monk, let's form a band, shall we? Erhua was a little tipsy as she pulled Xingrua aside and muttered. The princess is drunk. Xingrua chuckled. I'm not drunk. I've been thinking about it for a long time. Let's form a heavy metal rock band and you will be the lead singer. Erhua patted Xingrua's shoulder and laughed heartily. Xingrua was stunned for a long time and laughed bitterly. She couldn't imagine what it would be like for a monk to sing heavy metal rock. Although the group of foreigners had been sent away, Xing Rua's experience during that period put her in a predicament. She couldn't clear the spiritual purification platform and didn't know where to go. She would come here from time to time to drink with Hua. Even though the surroundings were lively, she felt much more peaceful and stayed in the capital. She didn't expect the princess to suddenly make such a suggestion. Honeysuckle didn't mind Xing Rua's rejection again. Instead, he put one arm on the table and smiled like a flower. No one knew what fun things he was thinking about. After a short while, her cheeks puffed up again and her eyes squinted. She looked like a young girl. Another month passed. Jinrenli is here? Let's invite him in. Ren Baqin pushed aside the official documents on his desk and stretched himself. There were too many matters to attend to in the imperial court, big and small, and it was truly too much for him to handle. It made him want to throw them all away and go sailing by himself. Not long after, they saw the otherworldly woman dressed in Taoist robes. She was still as beautiful as ever, but she gave off a feeling that she was not tainted by the mortal world at all. It was as if she was floating in the air and would be gone with the wind at any time. Immortality, how have you been? Ren Baqin stood up with a smile and took a few steps forward. The distance between them was only a few feet. He didn't know why, but he always wanted to shake hands with her to see if she was really untainted by dust. With this thought in mind, Ren Baqin really stretched out his hand. Zhao Prince Consort. She looked at his right hand, which was still stained with ink, with a tinge of doubt in her eyes. It's a courtesy, a handshake to show that both parties are friendly. Ren Baqin insisted on not withdrawing his hand. Seeing that she didn't respond, he reached out and grabbed her hand. He didn't feel too touched by her ice skin and jade bones, but he was finally satisfied when he saw the ink stains on her fingers. She couldn't help but smile. Seeing an immortal-like person like Jinrenli always makes me want to pull him back into the mortal world. Ren Baqin laughed heartily and took a step back. He saw that Lin Yu, who was beside him, seemed to be lost in her thoughts again. Mr. Lin. Ren Baqin called out tentatively. Although she wasn't very smart, she was still a top-notch expert, and calling her Mr. was a form of respect. It wasn't good to call her Madam or Mississippi. After half a minute, Lin Yu dragged her voice and said in a daze, "Ah, it's Prince Consort. You still haven't recovered?" Ren Baqin asked. It had been more than 10 years, but Lin Yu's strength hadn't changed at all, and the situation where she was dozens of beats slower hadn't improved at all. "I'm 2 seconds faster than before." She nodded slightly. Ren Baqin calculated in his mind. That meant that she had improved from 32 seconds to 30 seconds, right? She was still dial up the internet. Is the world of Great Xia still stable? Ren Baqin asked casually. She nodded gently. In fact, when had the world ever been stable? However, the top group of people had left, and the remaining people were just small fries. In particular, how could it be possible to hide the fact that the organization had incorporated those top-notch experts? They didn't even think of hiding it. Almost everyone knew that there was an extremely powerful secret organization in the dark. Moreover, there hadn't been any news of those experts for so many years, and many people were guessing whether they were still alive. As a result, conspiracy theories were prevalent, and many people were much more cautious. "You've worked hard," Ren Baqin said. "How's the situation over there?" Li Yuanzhu asked. In fact, she was the one who should have gone to the Wall of the Two Worlds. With her talent, she was far superior to the Empress. However, in order to suppress the world, she stayed in Great Xia. It could be said that Ren Baqin felt a little guilty towards her. He immediately told her everything he knew about the Wall of the Two Worlds, the foreign races, and the situation. In fact, it wasn't much. Even now, everyone knew very little about the foreign races. The Grey Thorn race, which wasn't far from where the Empress and the others were hiding, was a weak race and knew very little about the outside world. After all, the Wall of the Two Worlds was a remote place. Even the Jianghu race didn't know much about it and only heard a little from the caravans. There's not much time left. Li Yuanzhu's expression changed slightly. If they touched those two foreign tribes, the foreign races would probably react very soon. There's not much time left. Ren Baqin sighed. He only hoped to delay as much as possible. He then relaxed and smiled. However, it's not like we didn't gain anything. After saying that, he picked up a bottle from the table and took out a level 4 origin crystal from it. Wisps of vitality immediately emanated from it. Is this the origin crystal that the prince mentioned? Li Yuanzhu took it and carefully sensed it. It's indeed a good thing. If we had discovered it earlier, we wouldn't have had to worry so much. Hey, it's a good thing. Lin Yu grabbed the origin crystal in a flash. She held it tightly in her hand and refused to let go. Rinpoche smiled and shook his head. He asked someone to bring 15 level 4 crystals and 5 level 3 crystals to Li Yuanzhu. I hope you can break through as soon as possible, Rinpoche said. He then talked about other matters. The martial arts conference was easy to arrange. Even though those experts had left, their disciples still remained in Great Xia. These people included the majority of the elites in the Jianghu of Great Xia. In addition, they also had good friends. Most of the young elites' friends were of a similar level. In this way they wouldn't lose too many friends. One more thing. Mirror Moon Deity and Swift Thunder Hands are dead. If their descendants are willing, they can move to Dayo. Most of the martial arts techniques in the martial arts hall can be opened to them. If they are unwilling, I can make the decision to send them 50 level 5 origin crystals every year. If they have any difficulties, they can also contact the rearguard commandery. Mirror Moon Deity and Swift Thunder Hands were the two experts who died during the destruction of the Jianghu race. Li Yuanzhu felt it was a pity that the death of these elites was one less. However, she still said, "In that case, I will thank the prince on their behalf. It's what I should do." Rinpoche waved his hand. No matter why these people joined, they were fighting for the human race and eventually lost their lives. He had to take care of them so that those experts wouldn't have to worry about them. After talking about this, Rinpoche said, "There's another important matter that I need your help with. Is it to study the spirit and heaven-grade weapons?" Li Yuanzhu already knew a little before coming. Many experts have gained some insights over the years. I don't know if it will be of any help. Just 2 of you will be enough. Rinpoche smiled. The insights of many experts were mostly personal experiences. Although Rinpoche needed them, he didn't value them too much. He valued the research subjects more so that he could conduct systematic analysis and research. Chapter 1178. How are you, Miss Li? You are incomparably beautiful. I hope that our cooperation will be pleasant. I need to know some of your body data and what your heaven-grade weapon is. What can you do with your spirit when you're not using it? We need to observe some changes when you exchange your energy. We also need you to cooperate with us in some experiments. Body data? Observation? Li Yuanzhu was stunned when she arrived at the research institute and found out what she was going to do. Even with her calmness, there was some anger in her eyes. He would never have thought that he was actually here to be experimented on. The big-nosed man in front of her didn't notice her anger and kept saying things like, instruments, experiments, and observations, which made her feel bad. If it were someone else, they would have flown into a rage. However, Li Yuanzhu was much calmer than others. She knew that this research was very important, so she didn't flare up. She turned to look at Lin Yu, who was scared out of her wits, and laughed bitterly. "Oh? You didn't flare up?" Rinpoche smiled when he heard this. Li Yuanzhu had a good sense of the overall situation, but this was also the reason that restrained her. As long as it was for the human race, she would endure even if it was a little offensive or difficult. Of course, she couldn't go overboard. Rinpoche had already confirmed that, from a certain point of view, such people were easy to bully. It was true. As long as it was from a righteous point of view, most people wouldn't refuse. Rinpoche liked this kind of person. From a certain point of view, this kind of person was much easier to deal with than the Empress. This was true for most people, but in terms of his personal position, the Empress was better. To most people, the Empress was good and evil. Most of the time, she acted according to her own preferences, but she was very tolerant of people she liked. She was a typical person who would help her relatives and not reason. Even if Li Yuanzhu had someone she liked, if it conflicted with her righteousness, she would probably cut off her feelings. This was also the difference between the 2 top women in the world. Furthermore, the research was only to observe her exchange of energy, blood flow, and condense her heaven-grade weapon. It wouldn't be too offensive to her. Therefore, Rinpoche wasn't worried. After getting everyone to leave, Rinpoche calculated the Empress's schedule and figured that she should be back soon. The 60,000 mountains were vast, but if the Empress returned alone, she could travel directly through the air, which would be extremely fast. Just as he expected, news of the Empress's appearance in Qing Valley came back the next day. It really wasn't easy to find a place in the 60,000 mountains. Otherwise, the Empress would have arrived 10 days ago. This was after discovering the plane in the sky and following the direction for a few days before finding it. Qing Valley was not big. It was just an outpost. The most important things were the airport and a few warehouses. The Empress, who was dressed in red, appeared. She looked around and headed straight for the warehouse. Moments later, all the people guarding Qing Valley were shocked. After the Empress chased everyone away, she carried 2 bottles of wine out of the warehouse. After downing a bottle of wine, she let out a satisfied sigh of relief. Her face was full of satisfaction. He then used the radio to send a message to Rinpoche, "Prepare the wine pool for me. I want to see it when I return." Upon hearing the Empress's cold voice, a smile appeared on Rinpoche's face. "As you wish." He immediately returned to Earth and tried his best to bring back more than 1,000 caddies of ergoto. Long ago he had imposed a ban on alcohol, especially on the use of grain to brew wine. As for fruit wine, he turned a blind eye to it. After all, it couldn't be completely banned. For example, Air Hua's base camp, Shanhui restaurant, and several brothels in the city all had alcohol. 3 days later, the Empress boarded a plane that shook like a tractor as it rose into the sky. She rested her chin on one hand and sat by the window. She wasn't really affected by the turbulence. She looked at the huge beasts roaring in the forest in the distance and pondered whether she should get someone to clean up the surroundings. Previously, this route had been cleared. The beasts in the 60,000 mountains all had a sense of territory. After the powerful beasts in an area were cleared, other beasts would migrate over after a period of time. As a result, they had to be cleaned up from time to time. It seemed like there was no end to them. Because of this, more than half of the troops from the Protectorate of the South were involved. Before the plane reached a high altitude, there was a small accident. An iron-winged rock barged into the flight path of the plane and seemed to treat it as a toy. It chased after it for a while and planned to pounce on it. The archers on the plane shot a few arrows at it but couldn't chase it away. The arrows bounced off the gray feathers on its body, which made the rock a little angry. It looked as if it was being harassed by a few flies. With a cruel look in its eyes, it kept following the plane from below. If it wasn't for the fact that the plane was flying at a higher altitude than it would have caught up in time. After another 3 days, Rinpoche returned to the harem after the court session. He tidied himself up and informed Air Hua that he would return to the palace after school before heading out of the city with the ministers. After waiting for 2 hours, the plane finally landed at the airport. The Empress was the first to jump down from the plane and saw Rinpoche opening his arms. The Empress hugged him and smelled that familiar scent. She then bit his shoulder hard and heard him groan in pain. She then raised her head and sneered, "I'll deal with you when I get back." Her ears were very sharp. When she turned around, she could still hear Rinpoche muttering, "Are you born in the year of the dog?" She almost turned around and gave him another bite. "Don't stand on ceremony." The Empress nodded slightly at everyone. During the days when she wasn't around, everyone had done a good job in assisting Rinpoche. She was quite satisfied. "Let's talk after we get back to the palace," the Empress said faintly. "Yes." Everyone stole glances at the Empress curiously. They didn't know what level the Empress was at now and could only feel that her aura was as unfathomable as the sea. There were a few limousines and various vehicles outside. Nowadays, Dayo didn't only have tractors and trucks. There were limousines and off-road vehicles, but they weren't officially released. Basically, Rinpoche obtained them from the laboratory and gave them to everyone as a reward. These things looked precious, but they were all experimental models. Using them as a reward would be beneficial and not costly. This is not bad. The Empress sat in a limousine. When she saw Rinpoche take out the iced fruit wine from the refrigerator, her eyes immediately lit up. "Is my wine pool ready?" "Of course, how can I be careless with your Majesty's instructions?" Rinpoche hugged the Empress and received a long, suffocating kiss in response. Then she bit his lips so hard that he almost tore off a piece of skin. "You are indeed born in the year of the dog." Rinpoche was exasperated. This was why he couldn't beat her. "I heard that you are addicted to the brothel and neglected to discipline Air Hua?" The Empress looked at him from the corner of her eyes. "Who said that? I will beat him to death." Rinpoche was so angry that he almost died. How could she slander him like that? Angry out of humiliation? You are really bold. The Empress laughed and made Rinpoche panic. Angry out of humiliation? I have been working hard for several years. Even if I don't get any credit, I still put in a lot of effort. How dare someone slander me? Rinpoche said angrily. Ah. The Empress laughed meaningfully. Chapter 1179. Queen Mother. Air Hua was surprised to see the Empress in the palace. Although they were mother and daughter, they had not seen each other for many years and inevitably felt a little unfamiliar. The Empress left when Air Hua was 4 or 5 years old and had been gone for 5 or 6 years. Although they occasionally contacted each other through the radio, this didn't change the unfamiliarity brought about by distance. The Empress looked at Air Hua in a daze. She had grown up so quickly. That sense of unfamiliarity wasn't only felt by Hua, but also by her. Hua had grown up. When she left, she was only 7 or 8 years old, but she now looked like a slender and elegant young lady. She wore a long blue dress, looked like the Empress, had quick-witted eyes, and was a cardinal heaven expert. "You've grown up. Come closer and let me take a look." The Empress looked relaxed and smiled. "Queen Mother." Hua called out again. You look good," the Empress said gently. "Of course I'm doing well. It's just that I haven't seen you for a long time." Hua was as honest as he could be. Let's talk while we eat. I want to hear about what happened to you all these years." The family of 3 sat in front of the hot pot and sighed. It had been a long time since they last had such a day. At the table, the Empress asked Hua about her in detail, such as her school and studies. At first, Hua was honest, but he soon reverted to his old ways and was straightforward. "Queen Mother, let me toast to you." "Let's have another toast, Queen Mother." "Of course I'm very powerful. I'm a princess. Who dares to bully me? It's me who bullies others. I have a lot of friends who give me a lot of treasures. My favorite is a pair of fire sparrows. They have a nice chirp and can catch fire. Later I wanted to see if I could roast them. It's strange that they can catch fire but they can still be roasted. They taste pretty good but they're too small. I recently met a monk who is fun, drinks a lot, and has a good alcohol tolerance. He doesn't make a fuss after drinking too much, doesn't fight, and doesn't strip dance. He just cries at the slightest provocation. School isn't fun. There are too many courses but you can learn a lot. I've been very interested in revolutionary history recently. But it's different. Isn't that the fate of the Queen Mother? We're the biggest landlord. You'll beat me to death. Father doesn't go to brothels often, right? I can stay there for at most 5 days a week. At least there's a weekend. That's much better than me. Other people go to class 5 days a week, 7 days at most. I go to class 10 days a week. I've already broken the record in human history." Silence. Abrupt silence was the worst thing at the dining table. It was extremely awkward. Rinpoche glanced at the Empress and saw that she was smiling coldly. Then he looked at Honeysuckle, his eyes rolling. "This bastard did it on purpose. Speak properly." Rinpoche gritted his teeth. How could that be? I was just saying." "No, I was just a kid talking nonsense. Heh." The Empress curled her lips into a sneaky smile. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, capable of slicing people into pieces. The Empress didn't argue too much with Rinpoche. After all, she had many information channels in the imperial court. Rinpoche often went to brothels but he only went there to drink. He didn't do anything else and behaved himself after drinking. Usually he was too busy. Going to the brothel to listen to music and drink, then going to the big bathing pool to take a bath and have a massage was considered his pastime. Naturally, the Empress wouldn't go overboard. Otherwise, before Honeysuckle could stab Rinpoche, she would hang him up and beat him up first. Rinpoche looked at the eye mark on the Empress's arm and clicked his tongue. God. He felt that this thing might be a powerful existence from the foreign races and was a little interested. From the sound of it, it seemed like a curse. It could actually form such a mark on the other party's body. He didn't know the specific effect, but no matter what it was, this mark definitely had a positioning function. It was just like marking a target on the head of a boss in a game so that his teammates would know to attack him together. Let's go back and give it a try. Rinpoche didn't know if this thing would disappear when he returned. Only God knew how this thing worked. With a twist of space, Rinpoche pulled the Empress and Honeysuckle back to Earth. Looking at the sky, it was early in the morning. The time is just right. You can go to school now. Rinpoche patted Honeysuckle's back with such strength that would have killed someone else. Let's see if it's still there. Rinpoche grabbed the Empress's arm and saw that the eye-like mark had disappeared. Sure enough, the mark was affected after being separated by a world. Rinpoche could almost hear the other party's voice saying, "The other party is not in the service area." In the Lansang territory, in a forest that wasn't considered dense, countless beasts were frantically fleeing. The ground was shaking and the trees were swaying. It could be felt even from hundreds of kilometers away. 5 gigantic beasts of disaster that were as huge as mountains were constantly moving forward. Tall trees that were 20 to 30 meters tall were like straws in front of them and couldn't stop them at all. They were smashed, crushed, or deeply embedded in the soil. Wherever the 5 beasts passed, there was only a mess left. Behind the 5 ferocious beasts was a team of ferocious beasts and earth spirits that was far away. In the sky, dozens of flying beasts were circling above. They either swooped down or grabbed their fleeing prey. An earth spirit wearing a crown and a string of jewel-like ornaments sat on the head of a giant beast of disaster and rubbed a black crystal in his hand. It's been 5 days and there's still no response from this road sign. Where is the enemy marked by God? Is he dead or? He felt that the latter was the most likely. No one could hide from God's gaze. However, he didn't tell them immediately. Instead, he kept moving forward along the original route. This wasn't very useful since the road sign only pointed in one direction and wouldn't change unless it was within 500 kilometers. He didn't know if the other party was originally 500 kilometers or 10,000 kilometers away. Let's wait for another 2 days. If there's still no response, we can confirm that the other party is dead. Imperial Prince Su, there's a tribe of the four-eyed race 50 kilometers away. A huge winged flying snake landed on the same level as the Calamity Beast's head. The Earth Spirit clan members on the ground immediately knew about it. Let them prepare food or let them become food themselves. The Earth Spirit called Imperial Prince Su instructed. The four-eyed race was considered one of the stronger races among the weaker races. However, the Earth Spirit clan was considered above average even among the middle-level clans. In addition, the Earth Spirit clan had a god, which elevated the status of the Earth Spirit clan. It was only second to the 36 powerful clans and the strongest clans among the middle-level clans. As for treating the weaker races as food, it wasn't a big deal in his eyes. The Earth Spirit wasn't picky about food. A day later, near the ruins of the four-eyed race's tribe, Imperial Prince Su was about to give the order to return when he suddenly discovered that the road sign was reacting and trembling slightly. Chapter 1180. It's still here. It seems like this thing isn't so easy to deal with. Rinpoche frowned slightly when he saw the pattern reappear on the Empress's arm. If it's still here, it's better for your Majesty to keep it in the palace. Although it's fine now, it can't be useless. If it explodes one day, it won't be a small matter and may even endanger your Majesty's safety. It's not that troublesome. It's still effective, but it's a little weaker. The Empress was relatively calm. Rinpoche looked carefully and couldn't see which part was weaker. However, he still trusted the Empress's words. In this case, we'll travel to the two places more often and see what happens. That's right. The Empress nodded and changed the topic. Where's my wine pool? The Empress had always been obsessed with the legendary wine pool and carnal pleasures. If an emperor didn't have a wine pool and carnal pleasures, he would be embarrassed to say that he had done it before. It's already been prepared for your Majesty. Rinpoche smiled. I'll get someone to pour the wine in. 2 hours later, the two of them arrived at a hall. In the hall there was a pool that was 20 meters long and wide. It was half filled with liquid. As soon as they entered the hall, a strong aroma of wine rushed into their nostrils and could intoxicate them. A wine pool. The Empress's face was full of joy. There should be trees planted next to the pool, candy trees. The Empress pointed to the surroundings of the pool. Good. Humph, I don't know what they did to actually block the sight of the gods. But so what? After all, how can humans compare to the gods? Imperial Prince Su noticed the movement of the road sign and sneered. Let's go. Let them suffer the wrath of the black sky god. 3 days later, the road sign didn't respond again. The road sign responded again. The road sign didn't respond again. The road sign responded again. The road sign didn't respond again. The road sign again. Imperial Prince Su's hair stood on end. For more than a month, he was always on the verge of a violent rage. The team had been moving in the direction indicated, but what made him furious was that the road sign seemed to be getting harder and harder to track. Until one day the road sign couldn't find the other party's position. This made Imperial Prince Su's eyes hazy. There was no doubt that the other party was still alive. However, he didn't know how they did it. They actually blocked the sight of the gods and even the gods couldn't find them. Give up? Absolutely not. The other party's blasphemy towards the black sky god had to be cleansed with blood. But to continue? Who knew if the other party was thousands of miles away or tens of thousands of miles away? It was impossible for them to kill everyone along the way. Looks like it will disappear after one more time. Rinpoche rolled up the Empress's sleeve and looked at the faint mark. If he didn't know what it originally looked like, he wouldn't be able to tell. All that was left was a faint outline. He didn't expect that such a mark could be worn away by traveling back and forth through space. It was reasonable but unexpected. At the very least, he knew another additional function of traveling through space. Yes, I'll be leaving after it's gone, the Empress replied. It's a bit urgent. Time doesn't wait for me. Although the crystals were effective, they were more useful to the warriors of Great Xia. They were more suitable for them to meditate and exchange elemental energy with their divine souls. To be of use to the aboriginals, I need to stay in a space with dense yuan qi for a long period of time. I can't always stay in a quiet room. The Empress shook her head. I also want to see what it's like on the first heaven after I break through the longevity heaven. According to the message left by the Emperor is the level of strength in the longevity heaven realm. Those foreign race masters must be at this level as well. Only by reaching this level can we know how powerful they are. Your Majesty, how long will it take to reach that level? Rinpoche couldn't help but ask. The Empress could be said to be favored by heaven and earth, and her talent was unparalleled. She was a cardinal heaven expert at the age of 20 and broke through to the intermediate level of longevity heaven when she was just over 30. Now, she had already reached the advanced level and could be considered the #1 human in the world. This kind of talent had never been recorded in the thousands of years of history. Thousands of years ago, when the human race was still in the Lansang region, there weren't many people who could compare to the Empress. Moreover, the Empress had the hack machine to level up. However, without the help of predecessors, Rinpoche wasn't sure how long it would take for the Empress to take that step. On one hand he was looking forward to it, but on the other hand he was a little worried, which was why he asked this question. After the Empress took that step, the future should be much safer. I will definitely take that step within 10 years. The Empress said resolutely. Good. Rinpoche smiled. 10 years. He didn't know how many more years she could drag on. The most important thing now was to drag on. The longer she dragged on, the more advantageous it would be for the human race. If she dragged on until the human race got out of the warship, even if there were dozens or hundreds of foreign race masters, they could just directly attack them. The Empress returned for more than a month before leaving. She left in a hurry and didn't even explore the existence in the belly of Mount Luchui. It was a race against time now. Huh? There's news of Qi Ziding? Rinpoche was a little surprised. Most of the time, he had forgotten that he had such a brother-in-law. He had been looking for traces of the late emperor for more than 10 years, and even Honeysuckle was almost 11 years old. A door? Rinpoche was a little surprised. Yes, it's said to be a door with a layer of water on it. We can't see what's on the other side of the door. More than 10 people went in and no one came back from the other side. We don't know what's on the other side of the door, the radio reported. Rinpoche walked around the ground a few times. There were too many strange things in this world, such as the thousands of races in the Lansang land, the red moon in the sky, and now another door. It didn't seem too surprising. What about Qi Ziding? He also went in, and there were 3 cardinal heaven experts. Pass down the order that no one is allowed to go in again. Be on guard outside and I will send someone later, Rinpoche immediately ordered. Yes, but those people might not listen. The other party said hesitantly. Rinpoche knew who he was talking about. Qi Ziding was accompanied by a group of ancient race cardinal heaven experts that he had recruited. There were more than 20 of them. If these people wanted to go in, they couldn't be stopped. If they want to die, don't stop them. If they haven't gone in by the time my people arrive, it means that they don't dare to go in. What else is there to say? Rinpoche said coldly. Understood. If anyone returns or there are any movements, send a message back immediately. Rinpoche turned off the radio and pondered for a moment. Although this was what he said, Qi Ziding had disappeared after reaching the other side of the door. He still had to send someone to suppress them. However, where did that door lead to? It would be great if there were satellites now. By throwing a probe at the other side of the door, the satellites would naturally be able to receive the signal and know the specific situation. Now that the wall of the 2 worlds was the focus, he wouldn't tell the Empress about this matter so that she wouldn't worry. Rinpoche made up his mind. He didn't care whether Qi Ziding and the others were dead or alive. He only cared about the impact of this matter and where that door led to. Chapter 1181. Horn Dragon Galaxy, 4-leaf grass planet. There were several large cities on this planet that had a population of more than 1 million. Thunder Light City was one of them. When the sun rose and was still hanging in the sky, the people in the city had already started their daily lives. What's that in the sky? What is it? Someone cried out in alarm. As if it was contagious, most people on the street looked up at the sky. Then, this contagious action spread from one street to another until it covered half of the city. Countless thunder barbarians looked up at the object that was reflecting a metallic luster in the sky. It's so noisy outside. What happened? A deep voice was heard from the palace in Thunder Light City. King, there's something in the sky, a female thunder barbarian said with a surprised expression. In the sky? Something? The deep voice was heard again. I'm sorry, King. The female apologized at first, then explained, there's something floating in the sky. It's at least a few thousand meters high. I can still see it clearly, so it should be very big. It looks like a metal plate. If the people on Earth heard this, they would probably laugh for a long time. The spaceship stopped right above Thunderlight City, so it looked like a metal plate from below. It could be considered a different world version of the blind trying to figure out an elephant. Oh. The owner of the deep voice finally appeared. It was a tall thunder barbarian who was more than 2.5 meters tall. There was a diamond-shaped scale on his forehead that had a weak electric light jumping on it. At that moment, 8,000 meters in the sky. Those natives must be shocked. Oh mother, I see God. A white pilot looked at the aliens on the screen and laughed. Although his tone wasn't pleasant, the people around him didn't object to it. This was a sense of superiority and pride from a higher civilization. At least Earth was a civilization that had walked out of the planet. When faced with such an ignorant and backward civilization, it was natural for them to have such a mentality. Of course, the premise was that their powerful individual combat power was ignored. If both parties were on the same plane, no one would doubt that they would be rubbed against the ground by those two-horned aliens. This was the conclusion that came from observing their battles and individual combat over the past few years. It's out. The one with the strongest energy reaction. Let me see. The entire observation room was filled with the sound of people inhaling. The screen clearly displayed the opponent's vitality, 112336. An average adult's vitality was only around 10, and a well-trained elite soldier's vitality was only around 30. 112336 was equivalent to the vitality of 7,000 ordinary people. It could be considered a self-propelled battleship. If Rinpoche were here, he would have a better understanding of the other party's blood and chi value. One had to know that the blood chi of an Earth embryo realm expert was between 1,000 to 1,200. Most spirit wheel experts had a blood chi value of less than 3,000, and cardinal heaven experts only had a blood chi value of around 5,000. According to this growth curve, the experts of the heaven and earth domain would not have more than 10,000 blood chi. Martial artists who had just entered the longevity heaven only had a blood chi value of less than 20,000. The further one went, the greater the difference in physical strength between the ancient race martial art practitioners and the spirit refinement martial art practitioners. But his opponent had directly raised it to 6 digits. This was a qualitative difference. This number was simply terrifying. When are we going to send someone down to communicate with them? Someone asked, swallowing a mouthful of saliva. It was a man in a military uniform. Give them some time to think. After 24 hours, send a spaceship and a robot down. Have you finished analyzing their language? Another man asked. Yes, we have already put in surveillance equipment a year ago. After the analysis of 2 linguists and the photon computer, they can now communicate with each other. Then there's no problem. None of the foreign races below tried to shoot down the spaceship with long-range weapons such as arrows. The foreign race individual with the highest blood chi value stood outside for only a few minutes before returning to the largest building in the city. The building was shrouded in a kind of energy. Only the blood and chi value could be detected, but the specific value couldn't be detected. After 24 hours, the sun in this world was just past noon. After 24 hours, the thunder barbarians in the city below were still looking up at the steel plate in the sky from time to time as if they were afraid that it would fall. A small plane flew out of the spaceship. It was 10 meters long and 7 meters wide. It looked more like a diamond-shaped box in all 8 directions. The biggest feature of this Shuttle 17 was that it had a nozzle at the bottom and 4 small propellers at the top. It didn't need a runway to take off and land. It was more appropriate to call it an aircraft. When the plane first flew out, it didn't attract much attention. As the plane descended, the foreign races in the city immediately became restless. Look, there's something flying over. What is it? It doesn't look like a beast. Is there someone on it? In the palace. King, there's something flying down from the iron plate. And? That dull voice only responded faintly. What should we do? Wait, let's see what it is. For any race, an alien visitor was something that required imagination. The more backward a race was, the less understanding a race had of outer space, the more it was like this. King, that thing stopped. It stopped 100 meters above the rain platform. This time, before the dull voice replied, an electronic voice with a strange tone came from outside the palace. King of the Thunder Barbarians, I'm an envoy from a foreign land. We came here to communicate with you. I don't know if you're willing to. The reason why it was strange was that the last two words of the Thunder Barbarians were extremely forceful, like steel, so when they spoke they gave people a feeling that they were very imposing. However, this electronic voice was in line with the habits of the Earthlings, so the voice sounded a little weak. That thing spoke? The female Thunder Barbarian in the palace was shocked. After the electronic voice said it once, it repeated itself. After a few seconds of silence, the dull voice laughed. "Ha, interesting. I haven't encountered such an interesting thing in a long time. Okay, don't just stand there, let our guests in." The rain platform was a 3-story platform outside the palace. Each floor was 3 meters high. At this time, several guards were looking at the sky near the rain platform with lightning surging in their eyes. It wasn't until the female Thunder Barbarian came out and said a few words that the guards stood aside. "Come down, the king invites you in," the female Thunder Barbarian said to the sky. Everyone was surprised to see the plane land on the side. The side opened, and a woman who was similar to the Thunder Barbarian walked out. She had no horns, no lightning in her body, and no blood could be felt from her. That's right, it was a female robot. Under normal circumstances, it was easier for the other party to be on guard against a female. Especially according to the observation on Earth, the aesthetic standards of the Thunder Barbarian tribe were quite similar to those on Earth. This robot was made based on the aesthetic standards of the Thunder Barbarian tribe. "What are you?" The female Thunder Barbarian raised her eyebrows and looked at the robot in front of her. She could clearly feel that the other party was not a living thing. "It's not very polite to say that." The robot pursed her lips and smiled, saluting with the etiquette of the Thunder Barbarian tribe. "Come with me." She didn't feel any dangerous aura from the other party, so the female Thunder Barbarian directly invited it. As for checking the weapon, there was no such requirement at all. As the most powerful king of the Thunder Barbarian tribe, he naturally didn't care about this kind of thing. First set a small goal such as 1 second. Remember, Bookhouse. Chapter 1182. We've entered the hall. The signal isn't affected. A joyful voice came from the spaceship. Apart from that, it was even quieter in the spaceship. Everyone was looking at the image on the screen trying to catch any sound. Other than the spaceship staff, there were linguists, sociologists, and negotiation experts. Earth had made a lot of preparations for this meeting. According to some people, it was the beginning of a new chapter in history. This was the first contact between humans and an extraterrestrial civilization. It could be said to be a historical event. No one would be careless. As the robot entered the hall, the residence of the civilization's ruler was finally reflected in the eyes of the people on Earth. In the eyes of many people, a lot of things could be determined from a person's residence. Although it was an alien, it was better than not having any clues. The hall was spacious and simple, with black and blue as the main colors. At the top was not a seat, but a cushion that looked like a futon. A tall figure was sitting there with his legs crossed. Other than that, there was the female Thunder Barbarian in front of him. Neither of them had luxurious decorations on them. They were even inferior to the Thunder Barbarians outside. However, the pressure from their bodies was far beyond any life form they had ever seen. Simple, determined, tough. This was the first impression of the people on Earth. "It's a pleasure to meet you, King of the Thunder Barbarians. I'm an emissary from Earth. You can call me Zero." The robot saluted. "Puppet? Something shameful. But I'm still willing to give you a chance to talk." The tall figure said. "Tell me first. What are you guys? Where is Earth? What's your purpose?" "You can call us humans just like how you call yourselves the Thunder Barbarians. In fact, we're all carbon-based life forms. Although there are slight differences in appearance, there's not much difference in essence. Earth is another planet outside this one. We crossed the distant starry sky to come here with the friendship of humans." "Friendship?" The tall figure let out a soft laugh. "Yes, friendship. The boundless starry sky is our goal. The starry sky is vast and most of the planets have no life. Discovering and coming here is a surprise for both our races." The robot's words were said after many experts had discussed them. They tried their best to be as pretentious as possible so that the other party would not look down on them. After all, Earth had already walked out of the planet. They still had some confidence in dealing with the native alien races. However, he couldn't brag too much, lest the other party would see through him in the future and feel that he had been deceived. Thus, he tried to make his words as complete as possible. This was also based on the situation of the Thunder Barbarians. From what he had learned, the people of this race believed in martial strength. Their physical strength was strong and their personalities were straightforward. They hated being lied to. Come. Then why are you looking for me? Naturally, it's to establish a connection between both sides. Did you discover this world by accident? Where is your world? What do you want? I hate having something on my head. Do you know why I didn't take it down? The tall figure finished asking what he wanted to ask and suddenly changed the topic. Shoot it down? Many people on the spaceship laughed. Shooting down a spaceship from 10,000 meters in the sky with his bare hands? This joke is very funny. Primitive, barbaric, ignorant. Such labels were hung on the king of the thunder barbarians. Because I want to see what will happen. The voice of the tall figure didn't change much, but it carried a hint of thunder that sounded like the silence before. The expressions of the sociologists on the spaceship changed slightly. Was this the rhythm of a sudden change in attitude? Peaceful communication is built on powerful strength. There's a saying that goes, reading can make me talk to idiots calmly, and fists can make idiots talk to me calmly. Maybe we should show our strength. This kind of primitive, backward race can't understand the greatness and power of technology. They have too little knowledge, so they believe in the pressure of fists more. I don't think he'll be so unwise, right? Someone said. After all, communication between both sides was extremely beneficial to both sides. Honestly speaking, who would reject communication from another planet? If it was him, he would definitely not reject it. He believed that no one would be able to reject it. For a civilization that could walk out of a planet, even a little bit of technology would be enough for them to upgrade for several generations. Most people agreed with this statement. If it was Earth in their shoes, their first concern would be how to further communicate with the other party, exchanging technology, materials, minerals, and so on. They would find a way to get technology from the other party that could allow their civilization to transition. Secondly, they would want to get something that could allow their technology to advance, or something that could allow them to live a better life. Even if the other party didn't know much, as the king of a race, he wouldn't be too short-sighted, right? Maybe you're very powerful, but for us who can travel through space, your strength is still at the level of a living creature, the robot said. Hee hee ha ha ha. The tall figure suddenly laughed in a low voice. I've said it before, I hate things above my head, not even birds. And I also hate people who are sneaky and don't even dare to show their faces. If you come and greet me honestly, maybe I'll spend more time talking to you. The people on the spaceship who heard this had a strange expression. Greet him honestly? It was like a primitive man who was being pointed at by a gun and roaring, "You should just greet me honestly." However, the next moment, everyone couldn't laugh anymore. The tall figure didn't make any movements, but an electric current suddenly flowed into the robot's body. In a short moment, all the electronic parts were destroyed, and the screen on the spaceship went black. Although it's exquisite, a puppet is a puppet. The tall figure didn't even look at the robot and flashed out of the hall. Suddenly, a bow completely made of lightning appeared in his hand. Is he trying to shoot us down? Someone sneered. Everyone's face was a little angry. They didn't expect that they would fail to make contact with the king of a primitive race. The other party was simply unreasonable. The gap between the two parties was obvious, but the other party actually dared to do this? If it was someone else, even if they had some ideas, they would probably feign civility first, right? As expected, we should learn our lesson this time. Next time we should show our strength first and let them know who's boss. There's a high-energy reaction below, there's a high-energy reaction below. The spaceship's alarm suddenly sounded. However, everyone wasn't too worried. After all, this was a spaceship that could travel through space at an altitude of 10,000 meters. What everyone was more interested in was the bow in the other party's hand that was made of pure lightning. Scan it and see how the bow is made. We might have discovered a big secret, someone said excitedly. Everyone subconsciously felt that this bow made of lightning was some kind of special mineral. If they could excavate it, it might be of great use. A purple ray of light streaked across half the sky. Make sure to observe and record, someone else said. However, the next moment, the ray of light hit the spaceship and instantly broke through the outer shell of the spaceship. The powerful electric current instantly destroyed all the instruments on the spaceship. Even the people in the spaceship died in an instant. Looking at the falling spaceship, the tall figure wrapped in lightning suddenly leaped up. He first lifted the spaceship up a few inches, then smashed through the bottom armor of the spaceship. Boom. After all, it was a spaceship that was traveling through space. Its defense was excellent, and with this cushion the spaceship didn't suffer too much damage. King. Seeing the tall figure walk out from a hole on the side of the spaceship, the surrounding people cheered. King. The female thunder barbarian walked to the side. The tall figure nodded slightly. Find the best craftsmen and scholars in the city and see if they can research anything. Then he sneered. Weak rabbits actually want to be on equal footing with me? Do they think that just because they can fly, I can't do anything to them? How does the king know that they are weak? They don't even dare to show their faces. Why would the strong need to use such dishonest methods? But if they attack en masse, if they could attack en masse, it wouldn't be just one spaceship that came today. It wasn't easy for them to come here. Moreover, they were able to shoot down their spaceship so easily, which confirmed this point. They are just weak people with some strange skills. Chapter 1183. I have something to say. I thought that there was nothing that crossed the line in this book. However, I was reported by someone and met with a crackdown. I first 404 before reviewing it. I don't know if it was a certain reader or a certain author who reported me. I blocked a lot of haters and even retaliated. I understand that some people hate me. In Dragon Sky, I also scolded some people who didn't know anything and just blindly spouted nonsense. It's natural for people to hate me. I don't know who did it, so I'll say it all at once. Maybe they thought that they had won and thought that they could make the authors they didn't like unhappy. In fact, it only created an environment in which everyone in the online literature industry felt insecure. In the end, they didn't dare to write anything. I really don't know what the current online literature industry will look like. I can be sure that readers who like to read will not like to see this. As for some authors, they aren't that hateful, but they are quite pitiful. They can't do anything else and their minds aren't on the right path. They can only be disgusting like this. Anyway, I haven't seen any successful authors who report this or that every day. In the online literature industry, only strength is looked at and nothing else. If you want to produce results, you have to write your own book well. Even if you drag others down, you won't be able to come up. That's all. Recently, I've been writing other things for fun. I didn't have any manuscripts. I thought that it would take a few more days before I could release them. After I finished writing, I would go and update my novel. Chapter 1184. Thunder Barbarian King? The spaceship was shot down? Let me watch the video first. Rinpoche was surprised to hear the news. This time the news came back very quickly. It had only been 10 days in Dayo and 1 month on Earth. After all, when they first came into contact, the 3 spaceships in the Horn Dragon Star sector maintained constant communication. Everything that happened from start to end was clearly seen by the other 2 spaceships. Okay, just remember not to spread it. Yang Sen's face, which was getting rounder by the day, looked like a greasy middle-aged man, but was actually an old man, was floating in the air. With a smile on his face, he circulated the news internally and left it to Yang Sen to contact Rinpoche. After all, in this aspect, Yang Sen's vision was higher than everyone else's. He was an expert among experts. After witnessing the strength of the aliens, Rinpoche's status in the system was raised by a plus sign. His wife, the Empress who killed without batting an eye but was so beautiful that she made people speechless, was raised by 3 plus signs. Rinpoche shrank back and said, "Stay away from the camera, at least show the upper half of your body." Half of his body was more comfortable than a head floating in the air. Furthermore, this head was too big. Okay. The greasy head of the Messier 87 department, Yang Sen, shrank back and immediately became half of his body. Rinpoche opened the video sent by Yang Sen and even recorded the words of the pilot as if there was a voiceover. Ha, those natives must be shocked. Oh mother, I saw God. The flamboyant voice in the voiceover didn't surprise Rinpoche too much. This should be how a high-level civilization faced a low-level civilization. A long-lost scene flashed across his mind. Thinking back to when he transmigrated with a bowl of noodles and was almost beheaded, he felt a wave of sourness in his heart and almost cried. However, when he saw the blood and chi value of 112336, Rinpoche's face turned solemn. He knew what the blood and chi value of the Empress was. 35,000. The Empress was at the intermediate level of longevity heaven and had been training outside the wall of 2 worlds for almost 3 years. Now she was close to the advanced level of longevity heaven and only had a blood and chi value of 35,000. The other party's blood and chi value was 3 times that of the Empress's. Judging from the growth curve of his vitality value, he was probably no longer at the peak of the longevity heaven. At the very least, he had already taken a step there. Since the human emperor was dead, his body had been refined into a strange existence. All of his blood essence had shrunk into a ball near his heart, making it impossible to measure his vitality. Therefore, it was difficult for him to estimate the strength of those who had reached that level. However, Thunder Barbaric King's strength had already caused his heart to tighten. However, judging from the growth curve, he had at most 1 foot taken that step. In that case, how powerful would an existence who had truly reached that level be? As he thought about it, he watched the video and listened to everything that happened next with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Yang Sen didn't rush Rinpoche. Instead, he brewed a cup of wolfberry tea suitable for his age at the other end of the screen. Even though Rinpoche was already aware of this matter, he was still somewhat fearful of the might of this arrow and remained silent for a long time. What do you think? What do you think? Yang Sen finally opened his mouth after a long time. You can't evaluate these thunder barbaric kings with the thinking of earthlings. Rinpoche pointed out the first problem. Rather than looking for those sociologists, you might as well look for 2 ruffians from a backward region. They know better than anyone that the fist is the boss. If you don't show your strength, it's useless no matter what you say. Not everyone cares about the exchange of benefits, let alone the alien races. After staying in Dayo for so many years, he knew this way of thinking too well. As the king of a race, Thunder Barbaric King was inhumanly powerful, had a higher opinion of himself, was more stubborn and was harder to convince. Similarly, they valued martial strength more. Rinpoche could almost understand the other party's thinking. If they needed anything, they could just snatch it. Otherwise, they would work hard to train and strive to cross the starry sky with their body. They might not necessarily understand the dangers of the starry sky or the vacuum. In their opinion, since they could come over, they could go over. As long as their body was as strong as steel. Rinpoche dared to say that after the spacecraft crashed, the other party would definitely test the strength of the steel. In his opinion, it was just that he hadn't flown high enough. We didn't expect the other party to be so direct. We also considered what you said and came up with a variety of plans. However, the other party's reaction was still beyond our expectations. But it's still human thinking. Rinpoche ended this topic with one sentence. What's the height? 13,000 meters. There was no obvious weakening before hitting the spacecraft. The other party's arrow can reach at least a distance of more than 20,000 meters. Rinpoche was in a bad mood at this point. The stronger the other party is, the more powerful the enemy will be. Unless the distance is pulled to a safe enough position, even a spacecraft isn't a match for him, Rinpoche pointed out. A spacecraft that could fly in space was powerful in some aspects, but it was weak in terms of combat power. What about a nuclear bomb? The premise is that you can hit him. A powerful existence that has reached this level is extremely sensitive to danger and has a very strong body. This includes laser weapons. Without a certain density, it's very difficult to hit the other party. Naturally, they can't cause damage or even cause fatal damage. I don't recommend you to be enemies with him now, Rinpoche sighed. In fact, he hoped that Earth and the other party would fight to the death. Only in this way would Earth rack their brains to create more powerful weapons. War was one of the driving forces for the advancement of weapons and technology. This was also very beneficial to him. However, he couldn't say that. He is already looking for our traces. Although we are separated by a continent, after he finishes searching the area occupied by the Thunder Barbarians, he might send people to search further away. Yang Sen knew a lot of things which surprised Rinpoche. As the head of the Messier 87 department, he actually knew so much. What are the plans of the higher-ups now? Rinpoche suddenly asked. Yang Sen came to ask Rinpoche because he wanted to get some information from Rinpoche's opinion. As for the specific plans, it wasn't something that Rinpoche could control. How would I know about such things? Yang Sen laughed directly. I don't recommend making a second contact with the other party or immediately becoming enemies with him. I suggest that we seize the opportunity to develop weapons that can injure and kill such a powerful individual, Rinpoche said directly. Do you have any other opinions? For example, what level of strength can this person reach? Yang Sen asked. The value of blood and qi was just a number, and they needed to have a more intuitive understanding. The other party should have the ability to walk in the air at a height of no less than 2,000 meters, Rinpoche judged based on the Empress's situation. Anything else? Do you think I'm a god? What can I see with just these few things? Rinpoche spread his hands and asked. Yang Sen's greasy old face was starting to look a little unpleasant to the eye. He really didn't know too many things. Even the Empress hadn't reached this stage, so how much could he know? Furthermore, he wasn't in a good mood. The strength of these foreign races was indeed terrifying. In addition, I suggest that you don't try to use nuclear bombs. Although it can destroy a large number of ordinary Thunder Barbarians, it's very difficult to kill such an existence. After that, it will attract the most intense counterattack from the other party. I don't think that an ocean can stop such an existence. Moreover, there isn't just one such existence on planet Four-Leaf Grass. There are at least 3 of them. There are only 3 spaceships on Earth now. Oh, there are only 2 left. What can we do? Let's build the spaceships first. Only when there are enough spaceships will we have the capital to think about other things. By the way, their power of thunder and lightning should be related to their thunder pool. You guys better pay attention. Chapter 1185. Although he was concerned about the follow-up of the four-leaf clover planet, he knew that there wouldn't be any results in a short period of time. The 2 small spaceships would not be able to do anything to the other party. Just like what he said, at most he would throw a few nuclear bombs down to flatten the capital and kill countless Thunder Barbarians. Then, the Thunder Barbarian King would be injured but not killed, and he would retaliate crazily. As for the possibility of Thunder Barbaric King taking a nuclear bomb head-on, if this really happened, he might really consider smearing the nuclear bombs with honey and packing them in a gift box as a gift to the foreign race's heavenly lords. After returning to Dayo, 3 months passed in a flash. The 3 ironclad ships that Chao Zhong was on had also crossed the Qin nation and ventured thousands of miles into the 60,000 mountains. They had also built a stronghold to serve as a supply depot. Now they were preparing for the next exploration. It was estimated that it would take at least 3 months. There were still some fishermen coming and going along the coastline near the Chuyan Mansion and the Qin Nation. If they found a guide, they could avoid a lot of danger. However, no one had ever set foot in the 60,000 mountains before. At that time, it would be up to them to explore it bit by bit. The date of the martial arts contest had been set. It would be held in 3 months. Those under the age of 24 would be divided into 2 groups, 15 to 19 years old and 20 to 24 years old. The purpose of the contest was to select martial arts geniuses with potential. For this reason, a special group had been set up to serve the martial arts competition. The person in charge was an expert from the Temple of Heaven. The venue is set outside Wang capital city. There are a total of 5 arenas, 3 of which are the main arenas and will be used in rotation. The construction of the arenas will increase the number of steel bars, and the concrete will have a strength of 80. Ren Baqin looked at the blueprint of the arena in his hand and listened to Tu Hong, the head of the Ministry of Works, who was newly established in the Ministry of Works. Speaking of which, Ren Baqin and Tu Hong had a grudge against each other. Back then the 2 of them had sparred several times. However, the current Tu Hong was much more well-behaved. Let's do it this way. Report the expenses and withdraw them from the Ministry of Revenue. Ren Baqin immediately approved it. However, the next day the naive, stingy, miserly and seemingly menopausal Tu Wan directly said in the imperial court, "The Ministry of Revenue doesn't have any money left. The salary for 3 months has just been distributed, and the rest has been spent on the 60,000 mountains and the Wall of 2 Realms. If you don't believe me, you can go to the National Treasury and rummage through it. Even a mouse will be crying when it goes in." Even if Tu Hong was her biological brother, there was no way he could ask for money. Ren Baqin was silent for a while before saying in a relaxed manner, "This isn't difficult. We can pay the 6th knitting factory a sum of money to advertise during the entire competition. Also, ask the big families in the Yun Nation if they want to advertise at the competition." Advertisement? Let's advertise it to the public. It's the section that introduces the products on the Black Bamboo Academy's newspaper. After hearing Ren Baqin's explanation, everyone immediately understood. Is this useful? Of course. But the 6th knitting factory produces underwear and sports vests, right? Tractors and trucks are understandable, but what's the point of advertising these things? Ren Baqin had a smile on his face. It's just underwear and a knitted vest. Don't you always tear your clothes when you fight? Especially after you use weapons, it's rather unsightly. The 6th knitting factory has developed a kind of cotton woven with green spider silk. It's quite tough and not easy to damage, so it's not exposed during a fight. Everyone was stunned. Thinking about it, this thing did seem to be useful. Men were easy to deal with. At worst, they could just raise their swords and fight, but women seemed to be more concerned about this aspect. This was especially true for the warriors from the Yun Nation and Great Xia. Ren Baqin smiled in his heart. Putting aside the group of big shots in the court who would get drunk and start running around naked, the warriors still cared about their reputation. If it was a battle of life and death, they wouldn't care so much. However, in the arena, who would be willing to expose themselves in a battle of weapons? The advertising fee from the 6th knitting factory was definitely worth it. As for the chambers of commerce and families from the Yun Nation, they weren't without foresight. Those who sold weapons and medicine also had a demand for this. After the morning court session, Rinpoche stayed in the laboratory for the entire afternoon to check on the progress of various projects. He returned to the palace in the evening. "Where's the princess?" Rinpoche asked as soon as he returned. "In Fengyang Palace Hall." Xinji's bespectacled face, which was expressionless most of the time except during electric shocks, looked a little strange. What happened? Rinpoche might not have noticed if there was something wrong with other people's expressions. However, it was too obvious on Xinji's face. "Li Yuanzhu, Lin Yu and Xing Rua are also there," Xinji said in a cold voice. "How did they get together?" Rinpoche was slightly stunned. "Go on patrol. I'll go take a look." After giving some instructions, Rinpoche walked toward Fengyang Palace Hall. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he heard the sound of a zither coming from the main hall. Ah! Rinpoche was even more surprised. Erhua rarely looked for musicians in the palace. In addition, the identities of the other three people made Rinpoche even more curious about what they were doing. However, when he walked to the front of the hall, he vaguely heard a song coming from inside. The melody was a little familiar. "We met again at a wedding banquet." A beautiful woman was at the side, the candlelight swayed red. The lights were twinkling, reflecting a pair of picturesque faces. Like a gentle old dream on a cardamom branch. "I don't know the opposite party." Suddenly my thoughts churned. "I see your clothes are still white but your expression is a little cold." The voice was like the cry of a phoenix, extremely melodious and lingered in the air. People couldn't help but stop in their tracks to avoid disturbing the person who was singing. "It sounds familiar," Rinpoche thought to himself. He slowed down and took a few steps forward before he could see the situation in the hall clearly. He saw that the woman who was sitting with her eyes squinted and whose voice was like the sound of nature was actually Lin Yu. Li Yuanzhu was sitting cross-legged behind her and playing the zither. Not far from her was Erhua, who was sitting behind a drum. The song gradually stopped, but the mournful sound of the flute continued. Rinpoche's expression also became strange. The scene in front of him was something that he had never expected. The world's top expert, the ethereal Li Yuanzhu, Lin Yu, the troublemaker Erhua, and the superficial monk Xing Rua were actually singing together? Not to mention their strength, they couldn't possibly go together with their identities. Li Yuanzhu and Lin Yu should be doing research in the laboratory, right? Rinpoche suddenly remembered that he didn't see them in the laboratory in the afternoon. He didn't pay much attention to it at first since he needed to rest while being researched. He didn't expect them to be together. The song was very familiar, but he couldn't remember the name as it had been a long time ago. "Your Highness is here." Li Yuanzhu looked up and greeted him with a smile. "Arhat." Xing Rua held a bone flute in one hand and put his palms together with the other. He was dressed in white and looked rather ethereal. Lin Yu was still squinting and disconnected from the internet. Erhua jumped up from behind the drum and shouted, "Father!" "What's going on?" Rinpoche was puzzled. "Father, we have formed a band. Sister Lin Yu is the lead singer. Her singing is good, right? Sister Li is the zither player, I'm the drummer, and Monk Xing Rua is the bone flute and harmonizer." Erhua's expression was written all over his face. "I'm amazing, right? I'm amazing, right? Why aren't you praising me? If you don't praise me, I'll beat your chest with my little fists." "Band?" Rinpoche was a little confused. These people were going to form a band together? This didn't seem right. "Yes. We are going to form a rock band, but we are still getting used to it. Isn't Sister Lin Yu singing nice? We will definitely be popular," Erhua said cheerfully. Li Yuanzhu nodded slightly and smiled. Lin Yu continued to disconnect from the internet. Xing Rua smiled without saying anything and muttered, "Amitba." Rinpoche looked at the four of them, then at them again and then again. He had a stomach full of complaints but didn't know where to start. A Taoist nun, a monk, a princess, a mysterious internet expert and a rock band. How did these dozens of words come together? Also, the previous chapter was about studying extraterrestrial experts. How did this chapter jump to a rock band? After a while, Rinpoche suddenly slapped his thigh and looked at Li Yuanzhu with a strange expression. He remembered the name of this song. "A Taoist nun friend of mine, do you know the name of this song, Jinrenli? Post-air, share." Chapter 1186. I didn't expect that I would have the opportunity to participate in a competition in Dayo in this lifetime. Su Meijun sat in front of the table and sighed softly. It was unknown when Great Xia's position as the overlord fell in just a few years, but Dayo rose with an unstoppable momentum. This made every martial artist of Great Xia feel very complicated. Great Xia was clearly the center of the world. But that train is really comfortable and the trucks are not bad either. They are fast and much more comfortable than horse carriages. Also, their roads are really good. Every year the imperial court's laborers repair, and many people die. I wonder how many people are buried under such roads, a young girl at the side commented. Dayo's train was very comfortable, Dayo's trucks were very comfortable, and Dayo's roads were very good. But Dayo must have lost a lot of people and buried piles of bones. Those corrupt officials didn't care about human lives at all. In short, their contributions will be remembered for generations to come, Su Meijun concluded. Oh, it's really as evil as you say. An old man at the table beside laughed after listening from the beginning to the end. Oh, what did you say? Su Meijun turned around and saw a stout old man in a silk robe. He was served by a manservant beside him. There are professionals in charge of repairing roads. There are definitely people who die. Birth, aging, illness, and death are inevitable. But there aren't many people who die. It would be too exaggerated to see bones everywhere. There's a group of people who specialize in repairing roads. They know how to do it, what materials to use, what speed to do it, and how to do it safely. After all, they specialize in this, and this is called professionalism. Just like how an ordinary person might injure himself with a knife. If it were the two of you, would it be possible? Similarly, the technicians in the construction team aren't incompetent either. The old man laughed and looked at the two of them as if they were two silly deer. If he wasn't afraid that the other party would draw a knife and chop him, he might have spoken his mind. Indeed, the two of them didn't see the meaning in his eyes. If they did, they would probably draw their knives and chop him. Su Meijun thought about it and felt that what he said made sense. She became curious. Construction team? They specialize in repairing roads and nothing else? Are they supported by the Ministry of Works? Yes and no. Are they from Great Xia? It might not be the same as the situation in your world. It's a long story to explain in detail. Anyway, they get paid. Although it's a bit tough, it's still better than farming for others. At least they earn more money, the old man said with a smile and gave a simple explanation. Su Meijun nodded and looked down. It was a lively scene. The Yun nation had been conquered by Dayo. Not only were the people living in misery, but it was also a scene of orderly prosperity. Moreover, the commoner's sense of belonging was very strong. The two of them had only said a few words, and someone had already taken the initiative to explain. Senior Marshal Brother, is that the Enata saber? The girl felt bored after listening for a while. She turned her head to look at the street and suddenly exclaimed. He actually came as well. Su Meijun's eyes narrowed. She turned around and saw a handsome young man with a cold expression in the crowd. He was followed by a few women. What caught people's attention the most was the large saber on his back. The saber was 2 meters long and the saber itself took up half of it. There were 3 slanted ridges on the back of the saber, which could be used to lock weapons. Seeing this weapon, she knew the identity of the young man. He was the most famous young expert in Great Xia in the past 2 years, Jianghu, the Enata saber. Jianghu seemed to have noticed her gaze. He raised his head and glanced at her. His eyes were empty as if there was nothing in them. There was no person, no light, and nothing could be reflected in his eyes. His gaze swept past Su Meijun's face without stopping at all, as if she was just an insignificant person. He's so arrogant. He doesn't even care about Senior Marshal Brother. Before Su Meijun could speak, the girl was furious. In the next second, the Enata blade Jianghu staggered on the ground. He tripped over something and almost fell to the ground, causing the girl's anger to turn into laughter. Serves him right. Su Meijun smiled and shook her head. It said that the Enata saber practices his saber technique in his mind all the time and doesn't care about anything else. His purity is indeed amazing and enviable. It sounds simple, but how many people can be like him? There are a lot of experts participating this time. But Senior Marshal Brother will definitely be fine. The girl said. The appearance of this yuan crystal alarmed too many people. Speaking of experts, what kind of experts are we? How many experts were there 10 years ago? Li Fu, Li Yuanzhu, Qi Zhixiao, Jiang Zixi, Ma Hongyu, Su Gongso, and the others are experts. It's just that most of the top 100 experts in the world are missing. Their disciples aren't aware of them, and even Qi Zhixiao rarely appears. Now, only Li Yuanzhu stands alone in this world, while Hong Wu and a few other protectors guard the borders. Su Meijun sighed softly in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Not to mention the peak of the spirit will experts, if he could watch them fight he might be able to find an opportunity to break through. However, after that group of experts disappeared 100 years ago, there was a gap in the world of Great Xia. Nowadays, if an expert wanted to advance further, there wasn't even a reference other than the descriptions in the secret manuals. This was one of the reasons for the decline of the world of Great Xia. Although the outstanding young experts who came this time were here for the Yuan crystal, it wasn't as if they didn't have the intention of inquiring about it. For the next few days, Su Meijun stayed in Wangjing City. From time to time, she would meet familiar young experts to chat or discuss martial arts. During this period, she would also look for opportunities to inquire about those legendary experts, but to no avail. During this period, some other things happened. For example, within half a month, 30 experts died in Wang capital city, and all of them were killed by swords. No one knew who the killer was. All they knew was that the killer's sword was very fast, and the people who died under his sword included left-hand sword East Ning, who was famous for his fast swords, and quick saber Chiu He. The others were not nobodies either. They were all famous young experts. Another example was that there was a young girl in the city who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old and loved to watch the excitement. Whenever someone was competing, she would hold a melon in one hand and a melon in the other. She would squat at the side as if she was watching a monkey show and would sometimes even give a few pointers. Then, when she was watching a show, she had a conflict with a certain young expert. With a few punches and kicks, she pressed that young expert and his group of friends to the ground and even forced them to call her daddy. The other onlookers were immediately shocked. At this moment, everyone knew that she was also a great expert and one who was several stories tall. Oh? Killer ghost? Ren Baqin chuckled as if he had heard a joke. In reply to Your Highness, these are all false rumors spread by ignorant people, Jin Kunming, the commander of the rearguard commandery, said with a laugh. After laughing, he changed his tone and said, although it's a false rumor, this person's sword is indeed very fast and strong. If we let him continue to cause trouble, it won't be easy to clean up. Everyone is already panicking now. Have you found out his identity? Ren Baqin asked. Yes, his name is Li Dai. His origin is unknown and he's about 20 years old. He's a man of few words and seems to rarely talk to others. He's a little strange when talking to people. He doesn't have any inheritance and seems to have jumped out of the deep mountains and forests. It's suspected that he obtained a secret manual from an ancient tomb. Well, you've done a good job investigating, Ren Baqin praised. It's my duty. His strength? He's at the Earth embryo stage, just one step away from entering the path of heaven. Those who died in his hands were also at the Earth embryo stage, but they weren't as fast as his sword. Ren Baqin thought for a while and said, well, Yu Qing is watching the show from Wangjing, right? Let her do it. If she can keep them alive, then let them stay. If she can't, then kill them, Ren Baqin said after some thought. Under her strong request, Hua and her Taoist nun friend, Li Yuanzhu, her monk friend, Xing Rua, and her good friend, Lin Yu, who was offline, formed a band to perform as the opening performance for the martial arts competition. According to her, this was an opportunity for their band to become famous. Therefore, they found an excuse to go to Wangjing City early to watch the show. First, set a small goal such as 1 second. Chapter 1187. Ah, that man killer ghost? Kill him? What? Actually, he's quite fun. Honeysuckle swung her legs as she sat on the window frame. Her mind was filled with the image of the young man who almost bit his tongue after he was knocked into by her on purpose. He was indeed quite fun. Oh, I know. Actually, you don't have to kill him. You just have to beat him into submission, right? Honeysuckle nodded vigorously. I know. Where is he? All right, you guys lead the way. Honeysuckle's body flipped backward and fell down. She spun in the air and landed steadily on the ground. At night in Wangjing, the wind carried the smell of seafood. It mixed with the smell of spices and cosmetics to form a unique smell that made the people of the Yin nation proud. At least, Honeysuckle felt hungry just by smelling it. Sir, a bowl of wonton, please. Honeysuckle threw down 2 coins and suddenly thought of something. She turned to look at the tall and thin man behind her and asked, do you want some? No. The man shook his head. That's why you couldn't get promoted after working in the rearguard commandery for so many years. Honeysuckle looked disgusted. Her tone implied that he deserved to be promoted, which made the man laugh bitterly. Especially when the 11-year-old princess said that. It was a little hurtful. Another bowl. Another bowl. The Pole waited at the side without saying a word, as if he was really a Pole. After finishing 3 bowls of wonton, Honeysuckle felt a little better. The rain also fell like a curtain of pearls. Your Highness. Someone hurried over from a distance and handed over a transparent plastic umbrella with a flower pattern printed on it. It was a popular model for the past 2 years. I want oiled paper, Honeysuckle ordered. Handmade is the best. The person was a little stunned. He didn't know where Her Highness got this theory from. How could handmade things be as exquisite as factory-made things? Handmade has soul. Forget it, you guys don't understand anyway. Honeysuckle waved her hand disinterestedly and stood under the shed of the wonton stall. A few minutes later, she took the paper umbrella over her head and walked on the long street. She remembered the time when she went to Great Xia with her father and mother. The family of 3 walked on the street like this. It was also a paper umbrella. This was one of the few scenes that left a deep impression on her. He let his thoughts wander. The mother Empress came back and stayed for a month before heading south again. She had been beaten 15 times this month, an average of once every 2 days. It hurts so much. She's already such a big girl, yet you still have the heart to beat her? Is he his biological son? Your Highness, that brat has left the inn. It seems like he's going to make a move tonight. Oh, Honeysuckle said casually. Honeysuckle was not in a hurry, and the people who came were not in a hurry either. At most, it would just be 1 or 2 more martial artists dying. The telephone pole was like a moving telephone pole. If he hadn't turned around, he wouldn't have known that someone was following him. Li Dai looked like a shy young man. His appearance was not outstanding and his clothes were extremely simple, giving off a rustic vibe. But such a young man is the man-killer fiend that has been causing a lot of anxiety in Wangjing recently. At night, Su Meijun was sitting in her room when she suddenly heard the sound of a stone smashing against the window frame. Who? Su Meijun jumped out of the window and saw a figure standing on top of the wall. He was wearing a green robe and his hair was simply tied behind his head. He held a sword in his hand. Or more accurately, a sharpened piece of iron. It was so simple that it couldn't be any simpler. There wasn't even a blade, only a rope tied around the end of the sword. I heard, said your sword technique is very good. A slightly shy person spat out each word with a slight stutter. Draw your sword, you die. I live. Su Meijun originally thought it was a young martial artist who came to ask for advice. After all, the other party made it hard for people to raise their guard. But as soon as he heard this, his expression changed. Man-killer fiend? Draw your sword. Li Dai repeated. Su Meijun's expression changed a few times. As a confident martial artist, he naturally wouldn't think that he was weaker than others. But of the people who died under the hands of the man-killer fiend, he was very familiar with 2 of them, and they weren't any weaker than him. You don't draw your sword, I'll. Li Dai didn't know if it took too much effort to speak, but halfway through his sentence, he simply clasped his hands and bowed. A sword light flashed. Such a fast sword. Such a fast movement technique. Su Meijun only had enough time to think this. He instinctively unsheathed his sword and used his well-practiced sword technique. Ding. Su Meijun felt a weight on his hand, but the opponent's strength wasn't that great. But in the next second, a sword light drew a semicircle and slashed towards his neck. Soundless and colorless. Su Meijun twisted the sword in his hand and stabbed towards the opponent's chest without a sound. His first move was an ultimate technique. When the sword is drawn, it uses opposite forces and the sound of breaking air to cancel each other out. Unknowingly, the opponent has already been stabbed. It can kill the opponent soundless and colorless, hence its name. Especially in a night battle, its power is even greater. Often, the opponent doesn't even notice when the sword has already arrived. But the sword in Li Dai's hand was even faster. It spun in the air and flicked the rainwater towards Su Meijun's face. Not good. Just as Su Meijun had this thought, the rainwater was already in front of him. He could only wave his sleeves to block it and quickly retreat. If this rainwater hit his face, he might become unrecognizable and even affect his eyes. But as he blocked the rainwater, Su Meijun felt a pain in his chest. It's faster than the sword just now. Su Meijun suddenly realized. When Li Dai attacked, there was a ruthlessness that was the complete opposite of his usual shyness. His eyes were full of focus and devotion. One sword left a 3-inch long wound on Su Meijun's chest. The next sword went straight for Su Meijun's neck. It was almost like a shadow, not giving Su Meijun any chance to escape. Su Meijun blocked 2 more swords in a rather awkward manner. Seeing that the 3rd sword was already in front of her, she couldn't dodge it anymore. She cried in her heart, "It's over." She couldn't understand why her opponent was so strong when they were both at the peak of the Earth embryo stage. But at this moment, A red, straight, 7-inch long, oddly shaped hidden weapon flew towards her with a sound of breaking air. Taking advantage of the time when Li Dai cut off the hidden weapon, Su Meijun rolled backwards in an extremely awkward manner and dodged this fatal sword. Both of them looked in the direction where the brick came from and saw a girl in blue holding an umbrella on the wall. She was sitting there swinging her legs. She extended her other hand to the side, and a tall, thin man handed her a red hidden weapon. Not far away, another man in black was tearing down the wall. He broke it into pieces and placed them next to the tall, thin man. One was tearing down the wall and the other was handing bricks. The scene looked quite harmonious. It's you. Li Dai's gaze froze. He didn't know when the other party had appeared. It's me. Honeysuckle held the brick in one hand and the umbrella in the other. It's you. Li Dai's gaze froze. He didn't know when the other party had appeared. It's me. Honeysuckle held the brick in one hand and the umbrella in the other. I want to stop you. Honeysuckle seemed to think it was very funny. He mimicked Li Dai's words, making his face flush. A sword light cut across the night sky. Li Dai didn't have any protective feelings for the fairer sex. Honeysuckle seemed to be startled and his body fell backward. In the next second the whole wall flew into the air. While still in the air, it turned into countless bricks and pieces of cement, smashing toward Li Dai's face. Even Li Dai was caught off guard by this move. The water from the sword dance couldn't get in, and all the bricks and cement were swept away. You're scaring me. Honeysuckle's figure appeared from behind the brick wall. Her face was adorable and she seemed to be gnashing her teeth. This made Li Dai a little speechless. It was the first time he had encountered such a situation since he left the mountain, and he didn't know how to deal with it. Yes, you can't hold back against an enemy. Li Dai said something that sounded like an explanation, and then his expression turned serious. If you weren't so cute, I would have killed you with a slap, Honeysuckle said angrily. You want to fight? I'll beat you until you call me daddy today. Give me the knife. Honeysuckle stretched out his left hand, and another man in black appeared in the night. He respectfully handed over a 2-meter-long Shenhua axe. Judging by the size of the axe, it must be at least 50 kilograms. This isn't a knife, Li Dai said stubbornly, which made Honeysuckle's eyes widen. Even Su Meijun was somewhat speechless. The youth who had almost taken her life was actually such an honest fellow. Come. I'll let you make 3 moves first, Honeysuckle said carelessly with the axe on his back. Li Dai's expression turned serious. He could feel that the girl in front of him was very dangerous, so he didn't say anything more. He moved 4 to 5 meters away. The sword light was extremely beautiful and it was dazzling. However, in the next second the axe chopped down with the power to split the sky and the earth. The drizzle and the night sky were all split apart by this axe. Li Dai's figure flashed, and a palm-wide mark appeared on the ground where he was standing and the ground 5 to 6 meters behind him. Even the soil was turned up. It was so powerful even before they made contact. One could imagine what would have happened if he hadn't dodged it. 3-3. Li Dai's expression became even more serious and he stuttered even more. I lied to you. Didn't anyone tell you that girls lie? Honeysuckle smiled slyly and winked. If it weren't for this scene, if it weren't for the giant axe, if it weren't for the mark on the ground, Su Meijun's heartbeat would have quickened as she looked at this elf-like girl with a sly smile. Li Dai opened his mouth and he seemed even more clumsy. At this moment, the inn that had been alerted was completely lit up. Senior brother? A young girl looked through Su Meijun's window and immediately saw the people in the courtyard. She flipped over and jumped down. Senior brother, what's this? Su Meijun held out her hand to stop her from speaking. Honeysuckle swung his axe, and a white arc seemed to be visible in the air. Countless raindrops were smashed toward Li Dai. This was exactly the same as Li Dai's bullet rain. However, the difference in power was like heaven and earth. When the raindrops hit the ground and walls, there was even a rustling sound. Su Meijun was horrified to see countless tiny dots on the ground and walls. Spirit wheel, it must be a spirit wheel expert. Su Meijun exclaimed in her heart. Such a young spirit wheel expert. She started practicing martial arts in her mother's womb? Who is she? While Su Meijun was exclaiming in her heart, Honeysuckle had already swung her axe at Li Dai. Li Dai simply didn't dare to take it head-on. He moved his body slightly to the side and stabbed his sword 3 times in a row. The speed was so fast that even Honeysuckle had to face it head-on. However, there was, after all, a huge realm difference between them. Although Honeysuckle didn't have much combat experience, She had experienced life and death battles. Coupled with her innate talent for combat, she completely suppressed Li Dai in a few moves. Su Meijun felt that this scene was somewhat familiar. She laughed bitterly in her heart. An expert who almost took her life was like a puppet in the hands of this girl. After more than 10 moves, Li Dai couldn't avoid it. With a ding sound, the sword in his hand flew into the air. Honeysuckle's axe landed firmly on Li Dai's neck. She raised her chin slightly and said arrogantly, "Call me Daddy. A newcomer's new book, I can pass through a language book." Those who were interested could go and take a look. Chapter 1188. Li Dai didn't call him father after all. Honeysuckle didn't make things difficult for him. He threw the Shin flower axe aside, sending the person who caught it flying a few meters away. "Come with me." Honeysuckle glanced at Li Dai with disdain. You want me?" Li Dai stuttered and didn't know what to say. He couldn't beat him, so he suddenly didn't know what to do. After all, Li Dai was a rather innocent young man. "You're so weak that you can't even speak clearly. What can I ask you to do? I still need someone to serve the dishes and pour the water. You're the one." Honeysuckle was even more disgusted. Although he said that, Honeysuckle still felt that this child was quite fun. Simple, reserved, and stuttering. However, when he picked up the sword, he became a completely different person. Su Meijun really wanted to ask, "Is there a shortage of people to serve tea? Can I do it?" One had to know that all the spirit wheel experts had gone missing, and there wasn't anyone he could ask for advice from. Otherwise, he might have already stepped onto the path to heaven. "Don't even think about running. If you do, I'll break your legs. I'll do what I say. I'm fierce. I have hundreds of lackeys. Do you hear me?" Even after the blue-clothed girl and the man-killer fiend disappeared into the rain, Su Meijun was still in a daze. The man-killer fiend that's causing so much panic shouldn't appear again, right? Tonight was really dangerous. If it weren't for the blue-clothed girl, he probably wouldn't be able to see the sun tomorrow. Alright, I forgot to ask the girl's name. It was just that the young girl came and left quickly. She was in such a hurry that he didn't have a chance to interrupt. "Senior Marshal Brother, you've changed?" The young girl looked at Su Meijun's silent posture as he stared at the night sky for a long time. "He's already gone, why are you still looking? Don't talk nonsense, he's an expert." Su Meijun waved her hand. "Is it a woman?" "Yes. Beautiful, right? It seems like he's already gone. Are you still watching?" Su Meijun pursed her lips and felt a headache coming on. "Forget it, let's go back. By the way, who is that person?" The junior marshal's sister had just remembered that there was another person. Man-killer fiend. "Who? Man-killer fiends?" The junior sister suddenly raised her voice. "I almost couldn't see the sun for a while. It's raining, there won't be any sun in a while. Be serious." Su Meijun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The man-killer fiends came for senior brother? The girl was a bit scared. "That's why I almost couldn't see the sun for a while. There won't be any sun in a while. It's going to rain, senior marshal brother." Junior marshal's sister emphasized again. Su Meijun was speechless. She looked at her junior sister, who was so honest that she had a heart attack, and then thought of that sly girl. This was reality. For the next few days, Su Meijun would occasionally stroll around the city. Only then did she find out that another martial artist was attacked that night. The man-killer fiend incident was still causing a lot of anxiety. Fortunately, through Su Meijun, the news of the man-killer fiend's capture also spread, as well as a young girl in a blue dress who liked to eat melon seeds. Su Meijun didn't even care about the martial arts competition anymore. He wasn't even a match for a man-killer fiend. The world was so big and there might be many unknown experts. And that girl. Su Meijun strolled around the city to see if he had the chance to meet that girl. On one hand he wanted to thank her, and on the other hand he wanted to ask her for advice. He also wanted to find out the mystery of the disappearance of those spirit wheel experts. With that girl's strength and mysteriousness, she might know something. What made him feel regretful was that every time there was a martial arts competition, that girl would always appear at the side to eat melon seeds. However, these days he would go whenever there was a competition, but he never saw any trace of that girl. It was as if she disappeared after that night. However, he didn't give up. After all, the martial arts competition was about to start, and that girl might appear. "Senior? You really don't want to participate in the martial arts competition?" The girl looked regretful, but there was also some hope in her expression, as if she was hoping that Su Meijun would change his mind. "No." Su Meijun shook his head and tidied up his clothes in front of the mirror. The mirrors in Dayo were really good. They were clear, and the figures in the mirror didn't have the slightest distortion. They also didn't turn black as easily as bronze mirrors. More importantly, it was very difficult to polish a bronze mirror to such a large size. In Dayo, such mirrors were even available in inns, but in Great Xia they were very expensive. Let's go. Su Meijun brought his junior out of the inn and went straight out of the city. On the way he saw many practitioners who were traveling the same way as them. Most of them were riding tractors. The practitioners from Great Xia liked to try this kind of transportation, which was rather rare in Great Xia. It was indeed much more comfortable than a carriage. One by one the young heroes stood in the back of the tractor, facing the wind. 5 kilometers south of Wangjing City, the original farmland had been transformed into an open arena. There were 9 arenas, 3 big and 6 small. The 3 big arenas were the main arenas, and the 6 small arenas were used for the preliminaries. In addition, there were layers of spectator seats around the arena, which could accommodate 3,000 people. It seemed like a lot. After all, there were only a few hundred practitioners from Great Xia, and the number of practitioners from the Yun nation who came to participate was about the same. However, with the addition of the family and friends of many of the participating practitioners, some young people who came to broaden their horizons, and some onlookers, these spectator seats were far from enough. However, the officials in charge of this matter had already made preparations. In addition to adding a large number of spectator seats, they would also install a large screen outside the arena to broadcast the battles inside. Su Meijun and his junior got a seat with the invitation letter. They turned around and saw some of the more famous young practitioners around them. Many of them had interacted with them before, and they nodded to each other in greeting. At 8:30 in the morning, the Minister of War, Qin Chuan, went up to the center of the arena to give a speech. His voice was transmitted through the speakers in the arena. Although I see you as a bunch of bugs that I can crush with one foot, Her Highness is willing to give you a chance. In that case, show me your strength. Qin Chuan's merciless words made many of them angry, and they wanted to draw their swords and fight to the death. However, looking at the thousands of soldiers around them and the hundreds of winged cavalry warriors who were looking at them provocatively, they could only suppress their anger. Get him to come down. Ren Baqin, who was in the spectator stand, said to the guard beside him with a black face. This guy's opening speech was already like this? Ren Baqin didn't spend so much effort to select talents with potential just to turn them into his enemies. Qin Chuan didn't mind being called off the stage by Ren Baqin. The next person to go on stage was the MC that Ren Baqin had already arranged. After a provocative speech and explaining the schedule and the relevant prizes, the MC said in a high-pitched voice, "Next, let's welcome the lead band to perform." Many practitioners in the spectator stands were dumbfounded. Lead band? Band? What did that mean? They knew about performing on stage, however, as soon as they stood on the arena, there was an uproar from all around. Su Meijun was also surprised to see the girl in blue on the stage. Although she had expected her to appear here, she didn't expect her to appear in such a capacity. What was even more surprising was the identities of the other people. Li Yuanzhu and Lin Yu. Many people knew who these two people were. They were the 2 most powerful people in the martial arts world and were extremely beautiful. No one would have thought that such people would actually perform on stage. It was simply unbelievable. Many people recalled the rumors that Li Yuanzhu was related to Dayo, and from the looks of it, it seemed to be true. In addition to Li Yuanzhu, Lin Yu and the girl in blue, there were 2 other men. One of them was bald, and the other made Su Meijun's pupils shrink. It was the man-killer ghost. The man-killer ghost looked embarrassed and at a loss as he waited for Hua and the others to adjust their instruments. Hua played the drums, Li Yuanzhu played the zither, Lin Yu played the flute, and Xing Ruo played the bone flute. When the messy music gradually became unified and formed a melody, Hua whispered, "Don't mess it up or I'll beat you to death." When the drumbeats seemed to beat on everyone's hearts, the man-killer ghost closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and roared as if he had used all his strength. The great river flows eastward, the stars in the sky join the Big Dipper. He actually didn't stutter. Hua nodded gently as a form of praise. Not bad, he had performed well after practicing for the past 2 days. Lin Yu and Xing Ruo couldn't sing this song so boldly. In the end they managed to catch the man-killer ghost. Surprisingly, he didn't stutter as badly when he sang as when he spoke. After a week of passive resistance from Li Dai, Hua suppressed him with force, and threatening to strip him naked and hang him in front of his house, he finally finished practicing this song. Outside the stage, Ren Baqin almost vomited blood in his private room. Hua had prepared for this opening for a long time? *CK. He turned to look at the others nearby and found that they were listening with great interest. Especially that old fool, Qin Chuan. Although this song was a little strange, it was still quite to his liking. In fact, this song was quite good to the ears of many martial artists, and it even diluted their shock at Li Yuanzhu's appearance on stage in this situation. It sounded quite sentimental. Especially the lyrics, "Roar when you see injustice, strike when it's time to strike," were very much to their liking. Many people felt that this song was what they were thinking. After a few minutes, the song ended, and the man-killer ghost jumped off the stage as if he was running for his life. Hua ignored him with a grin, took the microphone and said, "Next, I present the song Tears Behind Prison Bars to everyone sitting here." Ren-Ba-Chen was speechless. Listening to the familiar melody, Ren-Ba-Chen was shocked. However, after thinking about it carefully, this song was really King appropriate. Chapter 1189. The song Tears Behind Prison Bars made many martial artists hold their swords in their hands and look around in confusion. Where am I? Where am I? What am I doing? The lead band became famous with a single song. Many people wanted to curse at him. If it wasn't for the sake of the two seniors, Li Yuanzhu and Lin Yu, if it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't defeat him, at noon, Su Meijun heard about the girl's identity from others. The princess of Deyo Chiyuqing. After all, some of the families and chambers of commerce in the Yun nation would go to the imperial capital from time to time. Many people had seen this princess who liked to drink at the Shanhui house. The identity of Hua spread from those people to the martial artists of the Yun nation and finally reached the ears of the martial artists of Great Xia. This made many martial artists feel the malice of the imperial court. Su Meijun was surprised to hear the news. What surprised him even more was that she was only 11 years old. Su Meijun suddenly felt a little fearful and a heavy sense of guilt when she thought about the other party's age a few days ago. After debating for an hour whether or not she was a pervert, Su Meijun went to the martial arts competition organizing team. "I was delayed due to some matters. Is it too late to register now? This is my invitation letter. Those who have an invitation letter can enter the seated group, but you definitely can't enter now. You'll have to fight from the preliminary round. If you agree, there's still an empty spot." The organizing team could be said to be the people who understood His Highness's thoughts the best. In the face of such a famous martial artist, they also adhered to the spirit of special treatment and gave him a way out. "Then let's start from the preliminary round." Su Meijun made a prompt decision. "Senior brother, didn't you say that you wouldn't participate?" "I changed my mind," Su Meijun said. After knowing the girl's identity, he felt that it would be very difficult to get in touch with her and ask her questions. However, if he obtained a good ranking in the martial arts conference, he might have a chance to get in touch with her. "Father, did I sing well?" Hua scurried in front of Ren-Ba-Chen and used the word "scurried" at lightning speed. "Did you sing it?" Ren-Ba-Chen chuckled. "I was the one who formed the band, so of course I get the credit," Honeysuckle grumbled. "Not bad." Ren-Ba-Chen nodded slightly and changed his tone. "You've been out long enough. Come back with me? I want to stay for a few more days to see how they fight. Besides, this is also a chance to learn from others, isn't it?" Honeysuckle quickly found an excuse. "It's up to you, but you can't delay your homework. I've already brought your homework and exam papers. Find a time to finish them and have someone send them back." Ren-Ba-Chen gave the imperial bodyguard a look, and the imperial bodyguard immediately understood what he meant. He took out over 50 kilograms of homework and test papers and slammed them on the table. Honeysuckle felt his heart shatter. He wasn't her biological son, definitely not. "Do you want me to go back with you?" Honeysuckle asked. "The homework can be reduced by half." Ren-Ba-Chen had a look of approval on his face. "Forget it. If I die, then I die. I'm not going back." Honeysuckle shouted and disappeared without a trace. "You stay here and remember to watch the princess finish her task." Ren-Ba-Chen gave the imperial bodyguard an arduous task. The guard's forehead was covered in sweat. "Your Highness, what about your safety? Should he let Cho Chi and Zhuotai stay? The two of them can fight better than you alone." Ren-Ba-Chen patted the guard's shoulder and entrusted him with an important task. "By the way, keep an eye on Li Dai and other people who appear near the princess. The princess is young and doesn't know the dangers of the world. If anything goes wrong, kill them first. If there's a mistake, don't let it go." "Understood." "All right." Ren-Ba-Chen nodded and walked away. He had come all the way here just to watch the opening ceremony and leave without even showing his face. As for the rest of the competition, someone would naturally report it to him. If he wanted to watch it, he could see it in the capital. After Rinpoche left, Honeysuckle resumed his days of eating melon seeds, watching the competition and strolling around with his new subordinates. At night, he gritted his teeth and curled up in his room to do his homework. As the competition progressed, some outstanding martial artists gradually became known to the world. Even Rinpoche had heard of them. For example, Great Xia's Anata sword Jianghu, Light Rain sword Su Meijun, the Mei sisters from the Yin Nation, and Xiong Shuitai and Shiranen from the Aboriginals. Are you going to challenge him? Honeysuckle asked as he sat in the private room and watched Jianghu use his sword to form a net that enveloped his opponent. Yes. Li Dai sat in his chair and straightened his body. What? Is there a grudge? Honeysuckle asked curiously. Li Dai scratched his head and said, He is the most famous. Honeysuckle's curiosity immediately turned into disgust. And then? He's very, very powerful. He sharpens his sword, accumulates his power, and wins in one battle. This was a way for great Xia martial artists to hone their mental strength. If they won the last battle, their mental strength would be at its peak, allowing them to break through the earth embryo stage and enter the path to heaven. However, this required the life of an expert to be the cornerstone, be it the opponent or oneself. Honeysuckle thought about it and commented, boring. Li Dai was so angry that his face turned red. At the same time, a young man looked at the green on the distant horizon and was ecstatic. I see green, I see green. Really? Where? When the young men and women behind him heard this, their exhausted bodies suddenly glowed with new strength. It's right in front of us. We can definitely reach it tonight. The first young man had 2 short horns on his head and was very tall. If we walk fast, we can get out of here tonight, Lin Dong, who had been following behind them, suddenly said. That's great. This MLM team finally walked out of the area outside the wall of 2 realms that was filled with poisonous fire. Late that night, the exhausted young men and women stepped on the grass and fell down. Lin Dong opened his arms and felt the yuan qi that was rushing toward him. It was even denser than at the wall of 2 realms. In his eyes, the whole world seemed to be different. The solid bottleneck in his body began to loosen, which made Lin Dong a little excited. As long as he found a place to cultivate, he believed that he would be able to break through in no time. Leader this place. Su Jiaojia, who had been standing behind Lin Dong, was pleasantly surprised. Not a bad place. Lin Dong looked into the distance with his deep eyes. It was as if he was embracing the world with his hands. Thinking of the heavy responsibility on his shoulders, he finally gave up the idea of finding a place to cultivate. No matter what, he had to let these foreign races gain a foothold among the foreign races first. Let them eat the soul-cleansing pill first, Lin Dong ordered. After walking for a few more days, the group finally saw the field. This place was very close to the Grey Thorn Tribe's village. Lei Li Lu Sheng, the 2 of you go to the Grey Thorn Tribe's village. Contact me once every 3 days through the radio and report the situation. Lin Dong said to a young thunder barbarian and a young girl with a snake tail. Yes. The 2 nodded. Whether it is you or them, you are all the children of the Ajati matriarch. You must let them know the Ajati matriarch's real name. No matter what, do not clash with them. They are just ignorant and do not know the great existence. The reason why I want you to go is to let them understand these principles. Understood. The 2 said loudly, their eyes filled with fervor. Go. Lin Dong nodded and led the rest of the group to go their separate ways. They still had to go to other places. The 6 of them could first gain a foothold in 3 foreign races' villages. Then, with these 3 foreign races' villages as the starting point, they would continue to spread southward. A day later, the short Grey Thorn Tribe's village panicked. They looked at the 2 higher races' arrival with trepidation, even if they were 2 young men. I wonder what the 2 of you want us to do here? The village head of the Grey Thorn Tribe had a suspicious look on his face. This wasn't the territory of the Thunder Tribe or the Serpent Tribe. If he hadn't been to Stainless City before, he wouldn't have been able to recognize these 2 upper races. It's okay, don't panic. We are here to help you. Lu Xing smiled. Do you know Amway? No, the Ajati matriarch? Miao Shu House. Chapter 1190. Oh, 3 villages have been invaded? Not bad. Rinpoche smiled after hearing the news from the radio station. This was good news and his move had finally begun to work. Although the missionary work hadn't reached his expectations, this was only the beginning. Back then Lin Dong and Xing Ruo had put in a lot of effort and couldn't find any mistakes in the teachings of the Ajati matriarch. As long as the other party's divine system was absorbed, it would be easy to eliminate the other party's rejection. Your God is an identity of the Ajati matriarch and we also believe in her. Would you object? If you object, could it be that in your eyes the God you believe in isn't the only one? Isn't it supreme? Since it's the only one, then my theory is fine. Isn't it very reasonable? Teachings? Are the teachings passed down by the gods or by you? If there is a contradiction, then your understanding is wrong. This kind of sophistry, coupled with the decision to integrate other divine systems from the beginning, was enough to break down the defense in the other party's heart. After all, this wasn't a confrontation but absorption and integration. Most of the various religions guided people to do good, and all creatures yearned for the light. This was the nature of survival. As long as there was no conflict in the general direction, then small problems were easy to solve. Good news came from the south of the barrier, but after returning to Earth, Rinpoche heard bad news. You used a nuclear bomb to blow up the capital of Thunder Barbarian? Rinpoche raised his voice in surprise. This was a decision made after many discussions. Yang Sun looked serious. What was the result? Rinpoche asked. Thunder Barbarian King escaped, but he was also seriously injured. Yang Sen's expression didn't look good. What exactly happened? Rinpoche hated this kind of situation. In view of your warning and speculation about the strength of Thunder Barbarian King, a total of 3 nuclear bombs with a yield of 1.3 megatons were dropped in 3 directions of the palace. Rinpoche sneered. His warning was for them not to use force against Thunder Barbarian King. He didn't expect that in just a few months, even Thunder Barbarian King's capital would be blown up. Did they feel that they had stepped into the interstellar era and were inflated? The casualties of the Thunder Barbarian capital is 50%, and the rest of the population will find it difficult to survive for a year under the radiation. However, as you said, Thunder Barbarian King reacted before the nuclear bomb exploded and was injured but not killed. What happened next? Rinpoche believed that something else must have happened. Otherwise, Yang Sun wouldn't have come looking for him. Yang Sun was silent for a moment before saying, "Now the other 2 Thunder Barbarian kingdoms have also made their move. They have already sent people across the sea." Don't tell me that's why you're here. Thunder Barbarian King only had 3 people. Even if they found a forward operating base, they could just change to another one. They can't possibly plant flags all over the planet, Rinpoche replied casually. He was wondering what else Yang Sun had not said. From the beginning until now, he had probably been talking nonsense. Thunder Barbaric King was seriously injured? It was probably just a light injury. At the very least, he would be able to jump around with his injuries. Although the forward operating base was valuable, it was not worth fighting with 3 Thunder Barbarian Kings. As long as he avoided these 3 Thunder Barbarian Kings and a few Thunder Barbarian experts, the others would not be too difficult to deal with. An expert like the Thunder Barbarian King had already undergone a qualitative change and was no longer an ordinary creature. I wonder if you have any way to help us capture a Thunder Barbarian King? If there is such a living specimen, I believe that we will have a huge harvest, and the nation will also give you a huge. Yang Sun finally revealed his true intentions. However, before he could finish his sentence, the screen went black. Rinpoche expressionlessly turned off the communication device with a hint of anger in his eyes. Capture? How to capture? Even a nuclear bomb couldn't do anything. What were those people planning? To let the Empress fight to the death? There was no other possibility. After all, in their eyes, the Empress was a powerful being that no longer belonged to humans. They had overestimated the Empress. They had overestimated themselves. Not to mention whether they could defeat them. Even if they could, they would not go to such a distant galaxy to fight to the death for them. Rinpoche sat on the sofa without saying a word. His eyes were gloomy. He hadn't been this angry in a long time. After a while, he contacted Ren Wanyin and said, "Wanyin, help me find out who is targeting your sister-in-law. In addition, send me the details of what happened in the 4-leaf clover planet." Something happened? Ren Wanyin's expression turned solemn. Is someone crazy? He asked. One had to know that the Empress's strength was well known among the higher-ups of various countries on Earth. Someone actually dared to target her. Was he crazy? You investigate first. Rinpoche waved his hand and didn't want to say more. Rinpoche believed that someone would be willing to leak the news to him. After hanging up, Ren Baqin pondered again and felt that this matter wasn't as simple as someone targeting her. There might also be an intention to probe. Ren Baqin rubbed his forehead and gradually fell into deep thought. What else was behind the probing? Ren Baqin didn't like to deal with people who played politics because of this. It was tiring. Behind every intention there might be another 10 or 8 circles. They wouldn't show their fangs if they didn't make you dizzy. Ren Baqin felt that in terms of brains he would never be able to match them in this lifetime. Fortunately his fists were bigger than theirs. Things went as he expected. 3 hours later Ren Wanyin sent a request to contact him. Citigroup. I convinced a few people to push for it. This might include some exchanges and it would be difficult for that person to stop it directly, Ren Wanyin said and then mentioned a few more names. Who gave you the information? Ren Baqin suddenly asked. That man's secretary? Ren Baqin rubbed his forehead. He couldn't be bothered to guess whether that person wasn't in a good position to stop him or if he was just taking advantage of the situation. No matter what they thought, as long as his fist was big enough, and as long as humans had not completely left Earth, it would not affect him much. As for those few people, it's not easy to move either. Not only them but even the white flag was not easy to deal with. After all, this was a private matter that could not be brought to the table. Moreover, all the countries were working together to play landlord. How could he drag someone off the table and beat him up? After thinking about it, he came up with an idea. Remove the flag from the dojo. Since you're making trouble for me, I'll make trouble for you. If they threw a bunch of Earthwheel experts into the United States, they would have a headache and would have to bring 2 more bodyguards with them every day. In particular, after the uproar caused by the Empress, the United States was full of vigilance against strong practitioners. On the other hand, there was another kind of fanaticism among the people. Talented youths were recruited into the dojo. After entering the dojo, they would need to earn contribution points to learn higher-level martial arts. Over time, these people would become the blades of the dojo. Talented youths were recruited into the dojo. After entering the dojo, they would need to earn contribution points to learn higher-level martial arts. Over time, these people would become the blades of the dojo. Chapter 1191. The registration of the company was rejected? I heard that every state in the United States is different. Not every state? What? Everyone's visas were rejected? Ren Baqin threw the communication device with an indignant look on his face. I crossed the ocean to open a martial arts center to boost your economy. Why are you acting like you're guarding against me? Someone. Curator. Arrange for 50 winged cavalry warriors to come. Ren Baqin got up. When he went downstairs, the 50 winged cavalry warriors were already waiting for him. They weighed more than 150 kilograms, had fierce faces and scars all over their bodies. They were the kind of people who would go unnoticed wherever they went. Many of the winged cavalry warriors looked at each other and immediately understood what was going on. Curator, who are we going to beat? You said to twist their heads off, but I'm sure I won't beat the *T out of them. Actually, it's not interesting to twist their heads off. It's more interesting to beat their brains out. Psy brain juice is sweet. Who knows? Let me tell you, this is a cold knowledge. The scene changed from the smell of brains to a battle between salty and sweet factions. These messy words immediately made the faces of the Messier 87 personnel turn green. This is brain juice, not tofu pudding, brothers. Also, what are they going to do? 50 Earthwheel experts with extremely violent tendencies wanted to fight a war? Get in the car and go. Ren Baqin sat in the car in the middle and soon received a communication request from Yang Sr. What are you going to do? Yang Sun was livid. Sir, can you not cause trouble? Can't you tell me who provoked you? Don't worry, I'm just going to ask why they didn't apply for visas for my staff. Ren Baqin looked calm at this time. However, it would be strange if Yang Sun could be at ease. 20 flying cars that had just gotten their flight permits went straight to Shanghai. After arriving in the suburbs, it took them another 2 hours to arrive at the Consulate General due to the damned traffic. By the time they arrived, the Consulate General was already facing a formidable enemy, and the roads on both sides had been sealed. Curator, who are we going to beat up? Or kill them all? The 50 bald men got out of the car and began to loosen up their muscles with fierce looks in their eyes. Beat, beat, beat. We are here to consult, Ren Baqin scolded. Sir, what do you want? I asked, why didn't you give us visas? Are you not giving them money or are you discriminating against them for being ugly? Ren Baqin grinned and squinted at the row of military officials and guards at the entrance of the consulate, as well as the people from the Armed Forces Command not far away. Rinpoche saw 3 Earth Wheel experts from the Armed Forces Command standing at the back of the crowd, looking like onlookers. There are rules for applying for entry visas. The people from the Consulate General broke out in a cold sweat. Which rule did we not comply with? According to the latest derivative clause of the Biological Weapons Convention, Earth Wheel experts are strictly prohibited from entering the United States, the person from the Consulate General said while wiping his sweat. Rinpoche was stunned and turned to look at the people from the Armed Forces Command. Is there such a treaty? Also, what does the Biological Weapons Convention mean? Can you explain to me what a biological weapon is? The people of the Armed Forces Command began to sweat and turned on their communicators to ask for information from the rear. This is a recently implemented rule. The people from the Consulate General were sweating even more, as if they had just been fished out of the water. Not everyone could remain indifferent in the face of 50 ferocious men surrounding them. Rinpoche was speechless. Damn, he felt that something wasn't quite right. The United States did announce this rule yesterday. The people from the Armed Forces Command emphasized the word, yesterday, and looked at the people from the Consulate General with a strange look. Rinpoche was speechless. In order to prevent us from entering the country, they actually introduced a new clause overnight? You guys have worked hard. Do you have a fake visa? Rinpoche directly asked the people from the Armed Forces Command. The Armed Forces Command was speechless. How are we supposed to respond to this? The faces of the people from the Consulate General darkened. Mr. Ren, this is illegal. You guys can stand here and protest. Yes, stand here or sit down. Whatever you like. Rinpoche pointed to the line in front of the people from the Consulate General. There's no need to stand too close together. Why are you standing so sparsely? You can even squeeze through a dog. Protest? I can protest in our territory, right? Rinpoche casually said. Even if someone said no, he wasn't going to listen. You just stabbed me with a knife. Aren't you going to let me vent my anger? Is Earth owned by your family? Does the Consulate General have a back door? The 16 of you go to the back door. Remember, we are here to protest, not to smash, burn, and rob. Put away your ferocious looks and show your indignation. Do you understand? Do you know what indignation is? Yes, that's it. Rinpoche was satisfied to see the winged cavalry warriors gnashing their teeth and glaring angrily at him. Someone will come to deliver food and take over your shift. You guys can continue to protest here. Mr. Ren. The people from the Consulate General and the Armed Forces Command felt their scalps go numb. They had completely blocked the Consulate General. Rinpoche ignored them and went straight to the car. He was finally in a better mood. He returned to Wuxia City, arranged for someone to deliver food and returned to Dayo. 5 days later, when Rinpoche returned, he found that his communication device was about to explode from Yang Sen's calls. Mr. Ren, Uncle Ren, please reply. It has been half a month. When did you withdraw your people? Rinpoche pondered for a long time and finally remembered this matter. After returning to Dayo for a few days, he had been in the laboratory every day and had forgotten about this matter. He immediately replied, "Oh, I forgot." Yang Sun was delighted to see Rinpoche's reply, but he almost vomited blood when he saw the content of the reply. Forgot? Forget your grandpa. The back door of the American Consulate General in Shanghai was blocked half a month ago. This matter was even on the international news. Have they agreed to enter? Rinpoche replied a few minutes later. Yang Sun scratched his head. With your current aggressive look, how would the American consulate dare to let you enter? They didn't agree. We can't not protest such discriminatory treatment, right? Rinpoche replied again and threw the communication device aside. He drew a screen in the air. It was a picture of Thunder Barbarian capital from the sky. The time was in the morning. 3 cylindrical objects left the spacecraft and fell toward Thunder Barbarian capital. When they were about 1,000 meters away from Thunder Barbarian capital, the tall king appeared in their field of vision. After looking into the sky, Thunder Barbarian paused for a moment before disappearing in an instant. Rinpoche had to slow down the video to see that figure clearly. There was a person in between. The speed was 700 meters per second, which was faster than the Empress. When the Empress came back a few days ago, Rinpoche did some tests and found that the highest speed was only 500 meters per second. Then, 3 balls of white light lit up on the screen until the mushroom cloud completely obscured the image. This wasn't the first time Rinpoche had seen this video, but he was still amazed by Thunder Barbarian's ability to detect danger. Even if he had never seen a nuclear bomb or even knew about it, he could detect the danger in a short period of time and immediately make the decision to leave. With Thunder Barbarian's speed, he could definitely leave the center of the nuclear bomb before it exploded. As for the periphery of the explosion, the damage caused to Thunder Barbarian was limited. In fact, on the day of the explosion, the spacecraft had detected the traces of the Thunder Barbaric King in another city hundreds of miles away. After all, Thunder Barbarian was too powerful and couldn't be concealed after leaving the main hall made of unknown materials. This time, Thunder Barbarian was obviously vigilant. Although the spacecraft could detect traces of Thunder Barbarian, it was almost impossible to lock onto him again. I wonder what will happen next. Renbachin had some guesses. After demonstrating his strength, there would naturally be peace talks. It depended on whether the other party could accept it. Renbachin felt that it would be very difficult. He heard that the Thunder Barbarians were looking for traces of Earthlings everywhere and were digging cellars in various cities. It had to be said that no race was stupid. After investigating the scene, the Thunder Barbarians quickly found a way to deal with nuclear weapons. Although it would still cause a lot of damage, it wasn't enough to make them give up the war. Chapter 1192. Renbachin did what he had to do next. Occasionally he checked the news on the internet and saw the group of burly men from his martial arts center, even though they didn't show their faces. The winged cavalry warriors and disciples above the earth wheel level took turns in the martial arts center. Dozens of them stood there with signs of protest, and even a dog couldn't get in. If it weren't for the delivery drones, a few of them would have starved to death. What made him feel the most helpless was that the United States didn't even care about their reputation. Other than occasionally protesting in the country, they didn't care about anything else. In the end, they simply announced that the consulate would be renovated. In any case, if I don't care about my reputation, don't even think about coming over. In the end, someone joked, if others don't invite you in, you can't just barge in with a knife. Now that you've made a fuss, your face is in the mud. After protesting at the consulate for a month, Renbachin took the opportunity to withdraw his men. The consulate was renovated for another 2 months before it reopened. In any case, no one knew where it was being renovated. He just heard that the consul had returned to recuperate due to heart problems. The 3-month martial arts conference in Wangjing was also coming to an end. The most popular item during this period of time was probably the high-tensile anti-cutting underwear. After this item was advertised during the martial arts conference, it sold like crazy, especially after a few wretched fighters who specialized in attacking the bottom 3 advanced. No one wanted to make a single mistake in the arena. Not to mention being speechless, they wouldn't even be able to return to Great Xia. Su Meijun sat in a restaurant and looked around the crowd from time to time. After asking around, he heard that a girl like the one he saw the other day often appeared nearby. In fact, he had already asked around a few such places, but none of them had the person he was looking for. I don't know if this one is the one. Su Meijun took a sip of wine and sighed. How am I going to ask her when I see her? Will she tell me? Su Meijun didn't know about this, but this was the easiest way for him to get closer to the truth. Brother Su, I heard that you have been asking about a girl these days. May I know which girl caught your eye? A young man at the table next to him laughed. You can't talk about this. Su Meijun waved his hands. With that person's identity, he couldn't just casually spread the news. Otherwise he would be in big trouble. Look at how nervous Brother Su is. The young man laughed loudly. Baseless rumors may not necessarily be false. Another young man waved his fan and laughed. Brother Su, don't let down your junior sister. The other valiant and formidable-looking girl also laughed, but there was a bit of truth in her words. Junior sister Su Meijun was almost hanging on his body, that posture even a blind person could see. Su Meijun shook her head lightly. She couldn't explain it clearly to them. After sitting for a long time and seeing that the sky had darkened, Su Meijun still did not see the person she was looking for. She shook her head slightly. It seemed like she had made a wasted trip again. Just as he stood up and was about to leave, he glanced outside and froze. Ecstasy surged from the bottom of his heart. It was her. Even if he got the wrong girl, the man-killer fiend behind her, even if it's turned to ash, he'll still recognize it. Unable to care about anything else, Su Meijun threw down $200 bills and hurriedly ran downstairs. Brother Su, you're in such a hurry. Could it be that you found it? The few of them laughed and moved closer to the window. Miss, please wait. Su Meijun went downstairs, found the figure in the crowd and hurriedly ran over. Just as I thought, Brother Su still wants to deny it. The few people upstairs laughed. Come, let's go down and watch. Let's see what kind of girl can make Brother Su fall head over heels for her. Miss, please wait. Su Meijun saw that Tu Hua was ignoring her and hurriedly called out again. Just as she was about to step behind Tu Hua, she was stopped by someone. It's you? Li Dai raised his eyebrows. I didn't think you'd still remember me. Su Meijun laughed at herself. Not dead. Died under my sword. Remember, Li Dai said seriously. In reality she was the only one. Hearing this, Su Meijun didn't know what to say. If it weren't for that girl that day she would have died a long time ago. Thinking that, he didn't want to waste any more time with the man-killer fiend, loudly called out, Miss, please wait. Please wait, please wait, please wait, don't you find it annoying? I'm in a hurry to go back and do my homework. How can you not have any eyesight? You're so annoying. Tu Hua was annoyed after being called out a few times, so he turned around and started scolding him. The people who caught up just happened to hear Tu Hua's scolding, so they laughed. Miss, you probably don't know this is the light rain sword. Su Meijun's face turned red, wanting to cover that person's mouth. I don't care if you're the light rain sword, heavy rain sword or not, you guys are annoying. I want to go home and do my homework, do you hear me? If you hear me then get the hell out of here. Tu Hua's face was like a steamed bun, angrily turned around and left. Who cares what you guys are, nothing is more important than doing homework. Su Meijun still wanted to say something, but a cold light flashed and a sword was already at his throat. I have to do my homework, don't get in the way. Li Dai used a lot of energy to finish his sentence with a serious face. Hiss, such a fast sword, who is that? The young warriors who joined in the fun all gasped. Before they could even see clearly, the sword was already at Su Meijun's throat. They asked themselves if it was them they probably wouldn't even be able to block one move. Don't ask, if you ask it's the man-killer ghost. Su Meijun's face was gloomy. They finally found that person, but they didn't even have a chance to ask a question. He's the man-killer ghost? He's actually still in Wangjing? The few people were shocked. Who's that girl? Su Meijun hesitated, but in the end he didn't reveal Tu Hua's identity. However, before he said anything, the valiant girl suddenly exclaimed, I remember, she's the one who beat the drum at the beginning of the martial arts competition, the one who was with Li Dai, the princess of Deyo, Qiyuqing. I remember the tears behind the prison window very clearly. The few people's faces changed. The man-killer ghost is from Deyo's imperial court? The few people immediately thought of a bunch of schemes to attract the talents of Great Xia through the martial arts competition, and then catch them all in one fell swoop. They even made up a novel with 3 million words. It's not like that, the man-killer ghost isn't from Deyo's imperial court. That day I almost died in his hands, but the princess happened to save me. This man-killer ghost is chained to an iron chain. Enlistment? The man-killer ghost killed so many people, how can they let him go so easily? One person said angrily. However, another person thought of something and asked, Brother Su, why are you looking for the princess? Just asking a question. Su Meijun sighed softly. It seems that this princess isn't easy to deal with, that person said. Su Meijun thought for a while. Indeed, she wasn't easy to deal with. However, it seemed that the princess was really anxious now, but what was she anxious about? From what she said, was she going back to do her homework? What was homework? A series of cultivation methods appeared in Su Meijun's mind. Finally, she sighed faintly and said, although she's noble and has a high appetite, she's so self-disciplined and hard-working. No wonder she has such strength at such a young age. What strength? Someone asked curiously. Is that princess an expert? According to their classification, she should be a cardinal heaven expert, which is also a spirit wheel expert. Su Meijun said. That princess is only 14 or 15 years old, right? It's terrifying to have such a level of cultivation at such a young age. The person who asked earlier wasn't very well informed and was quite shocked after hearing this. You guys are thinking too much. She was born an earth wheel expert, and she's only 11 years old now. Someone instantly explained. Really? Just ask anyone and you guys will know. It was quite a sensational event back then. Speaking of which, you guys have been in Wangjing for so long, but you guys haven't even heard of this. Everyone fell silent after hearing this. She was born an earth wheel expert, but they trained so hard. What was the point of it? They couldn't compare. Actually, you can say that she's 13 years old. She stayed in her mother's womb for more than 2 years than others. Chapter 1193. After finding the area where Lu Hua appeared, Su Meijun waited at this restaurant whenever he had time. Even his junior sister sighed and said, "You have changed, dog." However, Su Meijun didn't have a chance to ask Lu Hua. Almost every time he appeared, he was in a hurry. His words were always the same: "I'm in a hurry to go home and do my homework." Su Meijun didn't get what he wanted even after the martial arts competition ended. However, the top 16 of the martial arts competition had to go to the capital to receive the award from the prince, which gave him some hope. "You hit me with this thing?" Lu Hua's eyes widened as he angrily pointed at the iron rod in Rinpoche's hand. "A bat? Did I pick it up from the garbage? I gave it to you while playing games." Rinpoche waved the iron rod in his hand. "Don't run, stop. Tell me why you hit me first." Lu Hua wasn't stupid and ran very fast. "You still have the cheek to ask? What did you sing at the closing ceremony? Kill that great Xia man." Exenja, hold her down. Rinpoche was so angry that the veins on his temples were popping. Exenja looked at the father and daughter chasing after her and found it interesting. Even an iceberg that hadn't moved for thousands of years showed signs of melting. "I just thought it was fun." "What's the relationship between the lyrics and the title of the song? You actually hit me with that thing over such a trivial matter?" Lu Hua felt wronged as he climbed over the wall and ran away from home. Rinpoche threw the iron rod on the ground and was so angry at Lu Hua that his liver was in pain. He had spent so much effort to organize the martial arts competition and recruit talents from all over the world, but Lu Hua's tears behind prison bars and "kill that great Xia man" had ruined everything. "Your Highness, would you like some tea?" Exenja asked leisurely. "I'm so angry that I'm not thirsty anymore." Rinpoche rubbed his temples. Lu Hua was really troublesome. "Drink some tea to get rid of the heat," Exenja added, causing Rinpoche to be slightly distracted. "Since when did you know this?" Rinpoche turned his gaze to Exenja. She was still dressed as a bespectacled woman, but her glasses were different every day. Over the years, Rinpoche would often put glasses on Exenja as if it was her only hobby. "Oh no, only two." As a result, the walls of Exenja's room in the palace were filled with glasses. A rough count showed that there were at least 800 of them, if not 1,000. She would change them every day. Exenja pushed up her glasses and thought for a long time before replying, "I've been suffering from excessive internal heat these days and have gotten pimples." Rinpoche carefully sized up the pimple again and again, but he couldn't find it. Su Meijun sat in the bus and looked at the scenery on both sides. She suddenly had a thought: if you don't come to the imperial capital, you won't know the prosperity of the world. He had been to the imperial capital of the Great Xia before, and although it was prosperous, it gave him a feeling of lethargy. It was completely incomparable to the imperial capital, which was full of vitality and vitality. Needless to say, the capital of the Great Xia dynasty was not even as prosperous as this place. Looking at the tall buildings outside, the plaques shining with various colors, the street lamps that were dozens of meters apart, the pedestrians wearing all kinds of clothes, and the smiles on many people's faces, this feeling became even stronger. "Hey, why aren't you leaving yet?" the junior sister asked loudly. "I'm stuck in a traffic jam." "Everything about the imperial capital is good, but the traffic jam is terrible." "It was better 2 years ago, but it's especially congested this year," the driver replied while drinking water. Back in the day I was also a tractor god on the highway. When I turned a corner, others couldn't even see my shadow. Now I can't even move because of the traffic jam." The driver lamented. "And then? Why aren't you driving the tractor anymore? Did you overturn and break your leg?" A warrior from the Yun nation who knew better laughed. "No, I was sentenced to half a year of hard labor for dangerous driving and intentionally injuring others." The driver chuckled. "Not many." That warrior from the Yun nation nodded. "No, I was racing with someone at that time. In the end, that person's car overturned and I hit him when he fell out. That person was hospitalized for a month and sentenced to 3 months for dangerous driving. At that time, both of us were mining together. Those who hadn't experienced that period wouldn't know how lively the highway was at that time. The Transportation Bureau issued fines every day and became the richest department in the imperial court." Su Meijun listened while thinking silently. Sure enough, the people here were more energetic even for a driver. "Brother Jiang, is there anything we need to pay attention to?" someone asked loudly. The person who was addressed as Brother Jiang was called Jianghu, and he was the son of an aristocratic family in the Yun nation. Upon hearing this he said, "Just follow the rules. Also don't fight. You will be punished regardless of whether you're right or wrong." If you have a conflict with someone, there is a fighting arena in the city, and disputes are usually settled there. Also, the brothels in the city only sell their skills and not their bodies. If the lady likes them, they will keep you for the night. If they don't force them. It's different from other places, someone said with a smile. Another thing is that you can go to any restaurant in the city, but it's best not to go to Shanhui House, Jianghu added. Why? That's a place where the second and third generations of officials hang out. It's easy to get into trouble there, Jianghu said simply. In fact, it wasn't just getting into trouble. That place had almost become the Aboriginals' private property. Other than the Aboriginals, only a few people went in and out without trouble. The others would inevitably encounter provocations and trouble. Su Meijuan's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. After settling down at night, Su Meijun inquired about the location of Shanhui House. She might be able to get some information there. When she arrived at the entrance, she heard a lot of people laughing inside. Their voices could even be heard on the street. Then she heard a young girl's voice. Is anyone treating me to a drink? I ran away from home and didn't bring any money with me. Ha, the princess ran away from home again. Is it because she didn't finish her homework or because she failed an exam? Many people smiled. If the princess ran away from home in other places, it would be a big deal. But here it was a common occurrence. They were used to it and delighted to see it. Su Meijun stepped into the restaurant. It's my treat. As soon as she said this, the restaurant quieted down. One by one, burly men or valiant young girls looked over with unfriendly expressions. Even if the princess wanted someone to treat her to a drink, it depended on who it was. Could any Tom, Dick, or Harry treat the princess to a drink? Brat, have you grown out all your hair? A burly man provoked, causing a burst of laughter. Why is it you again? You're so annoying. Honeysuckle looked over and immediately rested his chin on the table. He said impatiently. Hey brat, are you going to leave on your own, or should I throw you out? A burly man immediately stood up. I just want to ask you one thing, Su Meijun said sincerely. Get out. A fierce wind came from the side. A slap was getting closer and closer to his face. Su Meijuan's heart tightened. If this slap landed on someone else, their skull would probably be smashed. She immediately took 3 steps back and took another 3 steps forward. Then she cupped her hands at Honeysuckle. Her retreat and advance were so fast that only after images could be seen. Su Meijuan's nickname was Light Rain Sword. Other than her light rain sword technique, her lightness skills were also quite outstanding. Forget it, don't do anything. Honeysuckle waved his hand weakly to stop the burly man's next move. He raised his head and asked impatiently, What do you want to ask? Su Meijun didn't know if this question should be asked in front of everyone. He looked around and saw that everyone had an unfriendly expression on their faces. He knew that this was the only time he could ask. He lowered his voice slightly and said, May I ask Princess if you know where Ma Hongyu, Double Ring Sword Jiang Zixi, Su Gongso, and other experts are now? Honeysuckle looked up at him and was a little annoyed. Is that all? Yes. Su Meijuan's heart jumped. He felt that he was finally getting close to the big secret of the disappearance of so many experts. They went to war. Honeysuckle continued to lie on the table. He puffed up his cheeks and shouted, Waiter, pour some wine. War. Su Meijun was shocked. War with who? The next day, when Su Meijun went to the main hall, the waves in his heart still hadn't calmed down. The words that came out of the princess' mouth were simply too shocking. There were foreign tribes in the south of the 60,000 mountains? Those missing experts were fighting with the foreign tribes in the south? This was an answer that Su Meijun could never have imagined before. Even when he was in the main hall, he was still a little distracted. Other than him, everyone else looked serious and didn't dare to look sideways. There was no other way. The pressure from the Cardinal Heaven experts in the main hall was too great. If there was a place with the most experts in the world, everyone thought that there was no other place besides this place. He looked down at the 16 people below. They were the top 16 in this martial arts competition, and each of them was a talented young man. First, there was a round of encouragement, followed by a speech. It was mainly about welcoming warriors and people with talent and achievements in certain industries to immigrate to Dayo. There were various immigration incentives. This award ceremony was to be filmed and broadcasted throughout the country to reduce the negative impact that Honeysuckle's "kill that great Xia man" had on others. Following that was the award ceremony. The first place received 100 level 5 crystals, the second and third places received 50 crystals, the fourth to eighth places received 30 crystals, and the 9th to 16th places received 20 crystals. In addition, the martial arts hall was open to everyone. The top 3 could enter the second level, and the 4th to 16th places could enter the first level. The martial arts hall had collected many secret manuals from Tianjing Basin and the Yun Nation. There were also many collections provided by the Temple of Heaven and the imperial family. There were tens of thousands of manuals, so it wasn't an exaggeration to name it after the martial arts hall. When Ren Baqin announced this news, everyone's eyes lit up. The martial arts hall had a fatal attraction to any warrior. Near the end, Ren Baqin asked in a magnanimous manner, "What other requests do you have?" Many great Xia warriors were moved. They felt that this was a reward from the prince to the aboriginal warriors. At this moment someone stepped forward. It was Jianghu, who ranked 3rd in this year's competition. This made many great Xia warriors nervous as they didn't know why he was so unwise. "Your Highness, there's something I don't understand. Please enlighten me." Ren Baqin chuckled and said, "Ask away. I wonder where the top 100 experts in the world are now." Many people were shocked when they heard this. This was what everyone else wanted to know, but no one dared to ask this question under the gaze of so many cardinal heaven experts. Furthermore, he was asking the prince of another country. Su Meijuan's heart skipped a beat. Although he had just heard the answer last night, he still wanted to hear how the other party would answer. Ren Baqin looked at the crowd meaningfully and said, "This matter isn't really a secret. All the experts are fighting against the foreign races in the south. This is their responsibility, my responsibility, the responsibility of the people of Dayo, and also your responsibility." Ren Baqin didn't say too much, but he still roughly explained it. After hearing this, everyone had a look of horror on their faces. Only Su Meijun had a bitter smile on his face. He felt that all the trouble he had gone through these days was a joke. Furthermore, what he and the others had been thinking about all this time was a joke. The so-called big secret wasn't a secret at all. Then he felt a surge of vigor in his heart. Those seniors had shed blood for the human race in the south, so how could he not cherish himself? Chapter 1194. Lu Qing looked at the city wall in front of her, her heart filled with an indescribable emotion. This was Stainless City. It had been a year and a half since she arrived at the Grey Thorn village. She could be considered to have gained a firm foothold, developing quite a few followers of God in the village. The beauty of the Void hometown and the recognition of brothers and sisters of different races filled her followers with a sense of pride. The reason she came to Stainless City this time was to develop a new group of believers. Stainless City was more than 7,000 kilometers away from the two-boundary wall. It was also the city closest to the two-boundary wall, the center of the area of several thousand kilometers, where the Stainless Goddess resided. Where are you from? What's your name?" The guards at the entrance were 2 Naxi clansmen with long tails. When they saw Lu Qing, their eyes lit up. Their biological instinct to pursue the opposite sex made them very interested in this clansman they had never seen before. "I'm from Luoyuan." Lu Qing's face carried a trace of excitement. This was the first time she had seen a clansman from the outside world. "What kind of place is Luoyuan?" The 2 guards thought for a long time but still couldn't imagine that a Grey Thorn village that they had never placed in their eyes would actually produce a clansman. "Where are you going?" The 2 guards motioned for Lu Qing to stand to the side and not block the way into the city. They chatted with her while casually inspecting, berating, or kicking a few low-level clansmen. Lu Qing frowned slightly. "We are all the people of the Old Mother, we are all brothers and sisters." This concept had long since been rooted in her heart. But she knew what was more important. From the 2 guards, she learned about the situation of the Naxi clansmen in Stainless City. There were thousands of Naxi clansmen in the entire city, but there were no other Naxi clansmen within 1,000 kilometers. Stainless City was dominated by the Rolling Wind clan, which was also the race of the Stainless Goddess. This clan had many clansmen, and most of them had the ability to control the wind. The biggest problem was that this clan was very dirty. When the 2 Naxi guards mentioned their name, their eyes were filled with disgust. Probably because there was always wind flowing around their bodies, it caused a large amount of water to be lost. Thus, this clan liked to wrap themselves in a layer of mud, and they only bathed twice in their lives, once at birth and once at death. One could imagine the smell on their bodies. "Why don't you wait for a while? I'll take you to Willow Alley after your shift is over." A guard invited Lu Qing enthusiastically after hearing that she had nowhere else to go. Just like that, Lu Qing settled down in Willow Alley, which was filled with Na clan members. This process was not a smooth one. Lu Qing would occasionally mention the Ajati matriarch and almost got into a conflict with the Snake clan. Fortunately, Rinpoche had devised a set of sophistry in words. After some time, the people of the Snake clan no longer felt so repulsed by her. As long as I spend some time, I will definitely be able to develop some followers. Lu Qing clenched his fist when no one was around. In addition, she also inquired about the places where the lower races lived in the city. These lower races were the lowest existences in the city, and their lives were very difficult. Therefore, some small favors could make these lower races listen to her seriously. For example, by giving them some daily necessities and a small bag of food, many of the sick and elderly of the lower races who did not have much labor power would listen to her talk about the Ajati matriarch every day. As time passed, there would naturally be people who would agree. As for the money to buy things, she still had a few villages to support her. Although each village was in dire straits, when added together, it was barely enough to support her activities in Stainless City. Lu Qing carefully avoided the Rolling Wind people that she occasionally encountered. It wasn't that she found it dirty, but that the Rolling Wind people had a bad temper. Unknowingly, the ground suddenly began to shake, and the tremors were getting stronger and stronger. What's happening? Lu Qing looked around blankly. There were many people like her. Many people jumped to higher ground in the city and exclaimed in surprise. What's wrong? Lu Qing squeezed into the crowd and looked at the man on top of the flagpole. Many people below asked loudly. A huge beast. It's very big, twice the height of the city wall, the man on top gestured. Soon, some people who were a little further away from the city wall but had a wide field of vision could see that a huge head had appeared on top of the city wall. An earth spirit wearing a simple robe and a crown made of precious stones patted the giant beast's head and made it lower its head. Then he jumped down from the beast and led some earth spirits into the city through the gate. They went straight to the center of the city. Earth Spirit Clan, Su, request to see the Heavenly Lord. Do you think the Heavenly Lord is someone you can see whenever you want? Come with me, the High Priest wants to see you. Not long after, Imperial Prince Su saw the so-called High Priest in a stone hall with a few holes at the top that allowed sunlight to pass through. He was tightly wrapped in cloth from head to toe, only revealing his eyes and mouth. There were also gray water droplets dripping from the cloth. Original Earth Spirit Clan, what do you want to do? When the High Priest spoke, Imperial Prince Su could even hear the howling of the wind. Violent winds swept through the stone hall. A branch of my Earth Spirit Clan has been exterminated. Su was ordered by the Black Sky God to come and kill the enemy. Imperial Prince Su said loudly. According to the Black Sky God's guidance, the enemy is in this direction. High Priest of the Rolling Wind Clan, please tell me. The High Priest's slightly turbid eyes looked at Imperial Prince Su and he let out a laugh that sounded like a bellows. So that's how it is. Even if you didn't come, this old man would have sent people to investigate. Since that's the case, I'll let you guys deal with it yourselves. Go and kill. Where is our enemy? Imperial Prince Su's eyes lit up and he asked loudly. More than a year ago, the road mark left by the Black Sky God had lost its guidance. He had been searching in the original direction, going to many cities and places before finally arriving here. This was also the largest city in the north. There used to be a branch of the Earth Spirit Clan guarding the Black Stone Wall in the north. They were the abandoned clan that stayed here after the war to guard the other side of the wall. After a few thousand years, the abandoned clan has returned. Your clansmen must have been killed by them. Go and take revenge, go and kill. Go and destroy those abandoned clans. Abandoned clans? The branch that used to be called the human race? That's them. Now, they have declined to the point where they can no longer pose a threat. However, according to the agreement from back then, if this abandoned clan appears again, they must be completely annihilated. Without those kings, they still dare to come back. They really don't know what's good for them. Let them experience the anger of the Earth Spirit Clan. The High Priest laughed. Since it was the agreement from back then, why did you let them go? Imperial Prince Su asked. Back then, other than a branch of the Earth Spirit Clan and a branch of the Thousand Bone Clan, there were still some sentries left outside the wall between the two realms. Some of them have already returned from outside the wall between the two realms. They first went to where the God of Six Gods is, then sent a message here. My Rolling Clan also just learned about it. If it's them, the Earth Spirit Clan definitely won't let them go. After Su heard about the enemy's message, he wore a cruel smile on his face and strode out of the main hall. The High Priest laughed like a bellows and then soaked himself in the pool, no longer paying attention to this matter. The Earth Spirit clan, which had a powerful giant beast and a secret symbiosis technique, was definitely not something that the abandoned clan, who had lost their king and had stayed outside the wall between the two realms for thousands of years, could resist. In this way he could save himself the trouble of mobilizing his troops and rations. Lu Qing didn't stay in the city for too long before he felt the same tremor again. However, this time it was far away. This direction is at Luoyuan village. Why would such a powerful giant beast go there? But the high priest said that if there's an abnormal situation, I have to report it to him. Lu Qing thought for a moment, then returned to his room. He moved a piece of soil at the foot of his bed and took out a palm-sized metal cylinder. He first took out 3 antennas, then pressed a few buttons. Primary Priest Lu Qing? What's the matter? A woman's voice came from the other side. Lu Qing remembered that it was the officiant beside the high priest. Today, some Earth Spirit clan members and very large giant beasts left Stainless City and headed north. The high priest said that if there's such a situation, I have to report it to him. After she finished speaking, she felt as if time had stopped for a moment. She couldn't even hear the other side's breathing. Then a slightly different voice came. You've worked hard. Do you know how many Earth Spirits there are, what kind of giant beasts, how many, and which route they took? I don't know. I'll go ask around. Someone should have seen them at the city gate. The route they took was in the direction of Luoyuan village. Then Lu Qing was a little worried. Will the gray thorns in the village be all right? They'll be fine. After saying this, the officiant encouraged him again and hurriedly turned off the radio. First set a small target, for example 1 second. Remember, bookseller's residence. Chapter 1195. More than 5,000 kilometers away from Stainless City, in the mountains near the Grey Thorn village. Lin Dong fiddled with the control panel in his hands as he watched the crow-like bird fly away in a crooked manner. On the screen above the platform, the scene that Crow was looking at was displayed. This thing is really powerful. It can even make this. Lin Dong sighed. His mind immediately came up with 100 ways to use this thing to make it easier to preach. As the leader of the Heavenly Orthodox sect, Lin Dong was very dedicated. Just like how a forensic doctor would always think about where to dissect a person. Doctors would always think about what was wrong with a person. But he heard that Prince Rin was preparing something better, specially designed for preaching. He did not know what it was. Are they coming for us? Su Jiaojia was worried, but she showed it on her face. After staying here for more than a year, she knew how powerful the foreign races were. She was no longer as optimistic as before. A smile appeared on Lin Dong's face. So what if I am? So what if we are not? We will have to fight this battle sooner or later. Even if we die here, we will just return to the Void hometown early. Leader, we believe in the Heavenly Lord. Su Jiaojia cautiously reminded. Leader, you are too immersed in your role. The Ajati Matriarch and the Heavenly Lord are just different names. Lin Dong said nonchalantly. His eyes were fixed on the light screen, which displayed the mountain range and land below. In a flash he flew past it. The vast fields and the villages in the distance were gradually getting bigger. If there is such a supreme existence in the world, then no matter what we call it, it will be it in the end, and it can only be it. So it doesn't matter who we believe in. Can't you see through it? Lin Dong asked. I only believe in you. Su Jiaojia's eyes were filled with affection, and her brows relaxed a lot. No, I, you, and the others only believe in our own hearts. Each of us believes in what we want to believe. The only difference is how to package this heart. Some people package it as the Heavenly Lord because they believe in the Heavenly Lord. Some people package it as the Ajati Matriarch because they believe in the Ajati Matriarch. The me in your heart, is it really me? Lin Dong's radiance made Su Jiaojia almost unable to look at him. More than that, he doubted his own intelligence. He couldn't understand it at all. Lin Dong did not explain and carefully looked at the scene on the screen. At the end of his vision, there was a team heading in their direction. Only 30 kilometers. This is the limit. Lin Dong softly sighed. Now he could only wait. First, he calculated the approximate distance and the time of the other party's arrival before controlling the crow to fly back. In the evening, Lin Dong once again commanded the crow to fly out. Wow, so much better. Even though she already knew, Su Jiaojiao's beautiful face still changed when she saw the huge army with her own eyes. Even Lin Dong furrowed his brows. The enemies were not overwhelming, but there were still about 30,000 of them. Most importantly, there were also an equal number of ferocious beasts. There were tigers, leopards, lions, wolves, and even more creatures that he had never seen before. All of them were huge enough to be used as mounts, and they also had powerful combat abilities. There were hundreds of flying beasts flying in the sky, and all of them were riding on earth spirits. In particular, 5 of the giant beasts had wide heads, bloody mouths, long necks, long forelimbs, and motley hind limbs. They were at least 100 meters tall and looked like moving mountains when they walked. Lin Dong heaved a sigh of relief after a long time. He controlled the crow to fly close to the ground so that it would not be eaten by the flying beasts in the sky. A campsite had already been set up at the border between the two worlds. The supplies from Dayo had been continuously transported here, so there was no need for the Empress and the rest to worry about logistics. There were nearly 1,000 people in the campsite. Among them, more than 100 were experts, and the rest were in charge of transportation and other logistics. The Empress sat in a stone house. It wasn't considered exquisite, but it was much better than in the cave. Your Majesty, something has happened. A lady walked in quickly with a pale face. The Empress glanced at her and didn't know what kind of news made her behave like this. However, there was another thought in her mind. Hong Xian's strength is sufficient, but she lacks experience on the battlefield. If she fights with the foreign races in this state, I'm afraid she won't survive. Tell me what's the matter? News. Chief Lin sent news that the Earth Spirit Army is attacking. Hong Xian's forehead was dripping with sweat. No matter how ignorant she was, she had heard about the strength of the foreign races from other people. Previously they had surrounded the foreign races and bullied the weak. More than 100 Spirit Wheel or Cardinal Heaven experts besieged a few foreign experts and many ordinary foreign races. Even so, there were often casualties. Now that they heard that the foreign races were attacking, they immediately panicked. The Empress didn't say a word. She poured herself a cup of wine, drank it, and asked, "Where are they? How many people? How strong are they?" Near the village of the Grey Thorn race to the north. There are 30,000 Earth Wheel experts and 30,000 ferocious beasts of varying strength. It is estimated that they will arrive in 10 days at most. If they speed up, I'm afraid that the vanguard will arrive in 5 days. 5 of the beasts are at least advanced longevity heaven experts and the rest are unknown. Hong Xian quickly poured out the news from Lin Dong. 60,000 enemies? The Empress muttered to herself for a while. The Earth Spirit's identity reminded her of the mark on her arm. She instructed, "Get Xan Chou, Jupu Hua, Li Fu, Mahongyu, Jiang Zixi, Su Gongso, and the others to discuss this matter." After a while everyone arrived. "Take a seat." The Empress waited for everyone to sit down before she said, "Lin Dong, sect leader Lin has sent a message. About 30,000 people from the Earth Spirit tribe and 30,000 ferocious beasts have appeared in the vicinity of the Grey Thorn tribe's village. Everyone is familiar with that place. A little further north is the land of fire poison." As soon as the Empress finished speaking, everyone's expression changed. Some even stood up and subconsciously looked toward the south. Hee, who cares how many people there are? Let's *CK them up. Xan Chou grinned with a sinister look on his face. Jupu Hua revealed her white teeth. Her whole body was surging with fighting spirit and a bloodthirsty aura. On the other hand, many great Xia experts frowned and pondered. Although there will be a battle sooner or later, they came faster than expected. Li Fu frowned. "We still need time," Jiang Zixi said. However, no one knew how much time it would take. After all, they were too few in number. "That's right, we need time," the Empress agreed. Not only did they need time, but Renbaqian also needed time. Each of these people was a precious seed that couldn't be wasted here. Your mission is to improve your strength and grow to the point where you can play a role in a top-notch battle. Don't die at the Wall of Two Worlds before you grow up. After speaking, the Empress looked around and said resolutely, "Give up here for now and lure them into the 60,000 mountains." The 60,000 mountains were extremely vast. As long as they were slightly off to the side, they would be able to get away from the supply routes and the aboriginals. In the meantime, they would use various methods to weaken the enemy. When they were weakened to a certain extent, they would be wiped out in one fell swoop. Not only could it reduce casualties, but it could also buy more time. In addition, find an opportunity to capture some alive, the Empress said after some thought. Renbaqian hadn't left any alive before, but he was very interested in the method of sharing life with the Earth Spirit. Chapter 1196. They're here so soon. Renbaqian sat in the palace, looked ahead, and was slightly distracted. It seemed that since the trip to the 60,000 mountains before the wedding, the shadows of the foreign races had been covering the sky of the human race. It had been almost 17 years since then. However, the human race was still not ready. The enemy this time wasn't considered strong. After all, it was only a middle-level race, but it wasn't weak either. In fact, it was far stronger than the current strength of the human race. However, Rinpoche wasn't too worried. As long as they were led to the 60,000 mountains and the weak earth spirits were eliminated through various methods, the remains of the human emperor should be enough to sweep the battlefield. It was a good opportunity to test the strength of the remains of the human emperor. After all, this was the greatest trump card at present. Only by testing it would he know the upper limit of its strength. What distracted him was the descendants of this group of earth spirits. The matter of the human race had been exposed to the foreign races. When there was no news of this group of earth spirits, more foreign races would come. Fortunately, he had arranged for Lin Dong and the others. If everything went well, they should be able to buy a lot of time. In fact, it was pretty good to bring the Empress and Honeysuckle back to Earth. Life was convenient and technology was advanced. At worst, they could migrate to the Triangulum Galaxy after a few decades. Although the Thunder Barbaric Kings were powerful, they were much easier to deal with than the gods of the foreign races. If there was enough time, he could bring a lot more people back. After thinking about this, Rinpoche came back to his senses, grinned, and extinguished this thought. Although this was the Empress's country, he had watched it grow step by step. This was where his blood and sweat were. Although the foreign races were powerful, who could say for sure that they would win until the end? Just in time to measure the strength of the foreign races and get the symbiotic technique of the earth spirits. Rinpoche looked quite calm. He wasn't excited or full of fighting spirit. This was just a small interlude. If he couldn't even beat these earth spirits, he would just go to sleep. Qing Yuan and Hong Yuan were peeking at Rinpoche's expression from a distance. They were impressed to see that he was only slightly distracted and then calmed down as if nothing had happened. Everyone in the palace could see how hard Rinpoche had worked over the years. Ask Qinglian to come to the palace. She is the sword master of Great Xia, who is now teaching mathematics at the college, Rinpoche ordered. Yes. A moment later he saw Qinglian, who looked much more mature than before. Unlike the Empress, who had hardly changed over the years, even without the jade embryo, the speed of her aging was still very slow. In terms of lifespan, a sword master's lifespan was similar to that of an ordinary person who had never cultivated. In fact, due to using the spirit sword too many times, their lifespan was even shorter than that of an ordinary person. I remember that you once said that there was a poisonous healer in the imperial court. His words always come true in reverse. Rinpoche asked. After conquering more than half of the territory, Su Qing's volunteer army was finally unable to advance any further. The appearance of a heaven-opening earth domain expert in the Great Xia royal family made no one dare to enter again. It was just that the expert from the Great Xia royal family was under some kind of restriction and could not travel far. Thus, the two sides reached a stalemate, and Su Qing established the Empress court. Only now did many people realize that Su Qing had many connections with the previous dynasty. The name of the Empress court also came from this. Your Highness, you must be referring to the current Marquis of Su Nation, Su Yu. Qinglian immediately knew who he was referring to. It's him. Can you invite him over? Rinpoche asked. He didn't pay much attention to the Empress court, nor did he have the energy to pay attention to the matters of the outside world. I'm afraid it will be very difficult. Su Yu is greedy, lustful, and afraid of death. He won't be willing to leave his gentle home. He will definitely not come to Dayo. Qinglian smiled when she mentioned Su Yu. Such a person actually joined the volunteer army? Rinpoche found it rather interesting. With a knife on his neck, he has to agree whether he wants to or not. If Qinglian didn't say it, few outsiders would know that the world-famous military counselor actually joined the army in this way. He has to come whether he wants to or not. It's not up to him. Make a trip yourself. I will ask the Department of Inspection to send some experts to accompany you. Get up early and set off overnight. Is there a problem ahead? In that case, Your Highness, get someone to substitute for tomorrow's class. Qinglian didn't need to ask. Seeing how anxious Rinpoche was and thinking about Su Yu's value, she immediately knew what was going on. Actually, I want you to serve in the imperial court, Rinpoche said appreciatively. Qinglian was clever and proficient in mathematics and probability. He felt rather regretful that such a talent had to teach in a school. I can't afford to offend the officials in the imperial court. Qinglian pursed her lips and smiled, which made Rinpoche laugh as well. Going to court every day was like fighting. Ordinary people really couldn't afford to go to court and get hurt. Go back and prepare first. I will arrange for a carriage to go with you later. Ren Baqin dismissed Qing Lian and thought about the Bichi again. However, the Empress wasn't around. With its speed, not many people could catch it. If he provoked its temper, he was afraid that he would be the first to be unlucky. Hence, he gave up on the idea. He only hoped that Su Yu's ability would be of great use. After thinking about it, Ren Baqin prepared a letter and asked Qing Lian to pass it to Su Qing so that he could borrow the marquis from his family. This was to prevent him from thinking that he was being kidnapped. 13 days later in Yuzhou, the marquis of the Su kingdom, Su Yu, was lying in his courtyard, basking in the sun. Back then he was forced to join the gang and was beaten up. After so many years he finally settled down. He had no intention of advancing further. He just wanted to bask in the sun, take care of flowers, walk his dog, go to brothels, marry concubines and abduct women. Anyway, as long as he didn't go too far, no one could do anything to him. The others wanted him to stay like this. Not only was it comfortable, but it was also safe. The housekeeper came to Su Yu's side and whispered, "Marquis, someone sent a greeting card saying that an old friend wants to see you." An old friend? Su Yu took the greeting card casually. Which old friend? The person only said that she is a guest of the king's tent. Su Yu was stunned. Now, there was only one king in the imperial court, and that was the emperor. As for the emperor's guests, they were all in court now and would never send a greeting card like this, let alone say that she was a guest of the king's tent. Looking at the pretty girl on the greeting card, a somewhat unfamiliar face immediately appeared in front of Su Yu's eyes. Su Yu was puzzled at first, but this expression didn't last for more than a second. His face suddenly changed and he jumped up from the recliner. "Where will Marquis see her?" "See what?" "Drag her away." After saying this, Su Yu didn't even change his clothes and ran to the back door as if his buttocks were on fire. "Ask Mr. Wu and Mr. Lu to come quickly. It's nothing good. We can't afford to offend them. We'd better hide quickly." "Marquis, where are you going in such a hurry?" Mr. Wu looked like a scholar in his 50s, while Mr. Lu was an old man. Both of them were at the earthwheel level. When Su Yu reached the back door, they had already caught up. "Don't ask too much. Follow me." Su Yu looked nervous. The two of them were a little suspicious. What was wrong with the usually unshakable Marquis today? It looked like he had encountered a formidable enemy. But this was the Marquis's residence. How could there be a formidable enemy? "Marquis, where are you going in such a hurry?" Su Yu, who had just pushed open the back door, heard this again. He immediately raised his eyebrows and said, "I told you not to." Then he suddenly shivered. This woman's voice was vaguely familiar, but it definitely wasn't the voice of the mansion. He could even hear the voices of the 38 concubines in the mansion with his ears closed. He turned his head and saw a woman with a wide forehead, a slightly big mouth, and glasses standing not far away, looking at him with an amused smile. "I haven't seen you for a long time. I didn't expect you to run away as soon as you saw my visiting card. Do you hate me so much?" "Miss Qing, I haven't seen you for a long time, but I have something urgent to do." Su Yu's forehead immediately dripped with sweat. He wasn't afraid of Qing Lian, but Qing Lian, who had been away from the imperial court for 10 years, was definitely up to no good. Moreover, Qing Lian was a spirit wheel sword master. If they met, it would be difficult for him to reject her. Therefore he couldn't meet her. He didn't expect her to run away. "No matter how anxious you are, it won't last long." Qing Lian chuckled. "Marquis, why don't you let me finish? Can I not listen?" "No." Qing Lian's face was stiff. "How dare you? Who are you?" Mr. Wu and Mr. Lu didn't sense any martial aura from Qing Lian. If they didn't show off now, when would they? Although she and Marquis seemed to be old friends, they couldn't miss this opportunity. Then, a tall figure suddenly appeared above their heads. "Don't kill them," Qing Lian said unhurriedly just before the big hands pressed on their heads. The two escaped with their lives, but they couldn't escape the fate of being pressed to the ground. As for Su Yu, he knew from the beginning that the two of them were no match for Qing Lian. He also knew the huge difference between a spirit wheel and an earth wheel. He even gave up the idea of escaping and stood there with a conflicted face. After a while, he said in despair, "Speak. Her Highness invites you to come with her." Qing Lian approached him step by step, as if stepping on his heart. This time Su Yu really had no desire to live. "Do I have a choice?" "No. I'm a dignified marquis. Her Highness left a letter for the previous king. If you don't want to cause any chaos, I can give you 15 minutes to arrange it. This time Su Yu's face was not only lifeless, but also deathly pale. Are you leaving a will for her? Marquis, you are thinking too much. Do I need to go through so much trouble to kill you? How long will she be back? I don't know. If you are willing, you can also move your family there. Qing Lian chuckled. These were Ren Baqian's original words. After all, this person was very useful, and they didn't know how long he would need to stay there. I have 38 concubines. If I don't return, I'm afraid they won't end up well. Should I bring them along? Su Yu asked tentatively. Qing Lian looked at Su Yu, who was like a moving mountain of flesh, and suddenly wanted to beat him up. After another half a month, Ren Baqian finally saw Su Yu, who was like a mountain of flesh. When he found out that Su Yu had more than 30 concubines behind him, Ren Baqian couldn't help but feel a little envious. It was contempt. This is Her Highness. Su Yu's face was full of flattery. Marquis Su, I had no choice but to invite you here this time. Please forgive me if I offended you. Although Ren Baqian was envious, despicable, disdainful, he was still polite. Did Qing Lian tell you on the way here? Ren Baqian asked with a smile. She didn't say anything. She just said that I'm useful. Ren Baqian nodded. Let me tell you then. He then explained the general situation to Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes widened. This matter is a bit big. Why haven't you heard about it? Su Yu was horrified. It's a big matter, and ordinary people won't benefit from knowing about it. Instead, it will cause panic. Ren Baqian waved his hand. Even if it was Great Xia and the imperial court, as long as they didn't drag him down, he couldn't be bothered with them. But I'm afraid that I'll betray Her Highness's trust in such a big matter. Su Yu looked conflicted. There's no other way. The foreign races are powerful and the human race is weak. As long as there's a slight chance, we have to try. Under the heavens and on the earth, the human race has to face such difficulties. If we can defeat the foreign races, of course, everything will be fine. If not, the human race will be removed from the world. Therefore, everyone with the ability has to participate. Even the ruffians are fighting outside the wall of the two worlds, let alone people like us who live in the imperial court and enjoy the worship of the people. Ren Baqian's words were resolute and decisive. Su Yu opened his mouth but couldn't say anything else. Su Yu thought about it carefully and couldn't help but admire Ren Baqian. Dayo had been preparing silently for so many years, and the Aboriginals had been guarding the south for so many years to fight the foreign races with all their might. Unlike the battle between the imperial court and Great Xia, this was a battle that truly carried the fate of the human race. A marquis like him didn't even know about it. Forget it, I'll sell these few hundred kilograms of meat to Her Highness. Su Yu's small eyes were shining at this time. He didn't look like the cowardly and ingratiating person anymore. He was no longer the Marquis Su who was waiting to die in the Marquis's residence. This sentence was addressed as Her Highness, and not Her Highness of Dayo. From Ren Baqian's description, he had already figured it out. After this battle, there would probably be more battles and he might not be able to return for a while. If Dayo was defeated, it would be useless to return. If Dayo won, there would be no point in returning. Of course, the premise was that what Ren Baqian said was true. However, even though this matter was shocking, he believed that Ren Baqian didn't come all the way here just to tease him. Su Yu could become the military advisor of the volunteer army not only because he was a top-notch toxic healer. At this moment he was very decisive and had sharp eyes. Ren Baqian laughed and said, in that case I'll have to trouble Marquis Su. First, I'll have to trouble you to be an advisor. After the war, I'll reward you according to your contributions. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second. Chapter 1197. Time before Qing Lian found Su Yu. The Wall of the Two Worlds. The Empress was sitting high above the Wall of the Two Worlds. The strong wind blew her hair on her face and caused her red dress to flutter in the air. Below them was the outpost that was already empty. All the equipment and resources had been moved away and buried. Ren Baqian didn't know if they could hide from the strange beasts, but they wouldn't be able to use them even if they found out. Within the Wall of the Two Worlds, there were two rather obvious paths. One of them was already there and had been created over the years. The other one was a very obvious false path when they retreated. In addition, there was a rather hidden path along which all the people retreated. Of course, this path was also a smokescreen. Or rather, it was the path that the enemy wanted to take. The Empress fiddled with the screen in front of her and saw a black line in the distance. The shrill cry of a bird came from the sky. They're coming. The Empress looked up and could already see a few small dots in the sky. She grabbed the bone bow beside her, flipped over, stood up, and knocked an arrow. The air was cut in front of the Empress. There was a ripping sound that sounded like a piece of cloth being torn apart. Then there was another sound. The black dots dancing in the sky in the distance exploded into clouds of blood. The Empress shot 16 arrows in a row and shot down all the enemies within her line of sight. However, that was all. After observing for a while, the enemy didn't seem to have any reaction. No flying mounts continued to rise into the sky, and no one left the team to speed up. Are they looking down on us? The Empress thought as she drank a mouthful of wine from the bottle. Tun tun tun. Ha. The Empress let out a long breath. Soon, the dots at the edge of her line of sight became bigger and bigger, and the ground trembled every moment. This continued until the Empress saw the 5 terrifying giant beasts that were 100 meters tall. They are indeed big guys. The energy reaction is 200,000? The Empress wore an energy detector on one of her eyes. It's a little scary, the Empress thought to herself. However, the other party definitely wasn't that strong. Otherwise, the Earth Spirit wouldn't be a mid-tier race. It should have something to do with their huge bodies. The energy inside such a huge body isn't something that a human body can compare with. They definitely aren't fast, the Empress continued to speculate. That was good news. Their speed was not fast, which meant that they would not be able to escape when the nuclear bomb exploded. These guys with the greatest energy reaction and the greatest destructive power were actually the easiest to deal with. I don't know if there are any outsiders who share the same life as these big guys. If there are, they must be important people. If we blow them up like this, we might even get a buy one get one free. After all, this kind of giant beast's life force must be extremely strong. If an Earth Spirit shared its life with this kind of giant beast, it would almost be an unkillable monster. Half a day later, the Earth Spirit clan's army finally arrived 2 miles away from the Wall of Two Boundaries. Imperial Prince Su looked at the completely empty camp in front of him and then raised his head to look at the red shadow at the top of the wall between the two realms. Human race. Imperial Prince Su's voice rumbled through the sky like thunder. Hairy monster. The Water Empress looked down at the Earth Spirit clan and replied. Were you the ones who killed our clansmen? Imperial Prince Su asked loudly. The original hairy monster's here? I killed him, that's right, the Empress replied coldly. The corners of Imperial Prince Su's mouth twitched as he revealed a bloodthirsty smile. Although he didn't expect the other party to answer, he was quite happy that she said it so frankly. I will destroy your country, kill your clansmen, turn your cities into ruins, and turn the land into barren land. The people of the Black Sky God are not to be blasphemed. Imperial Prince Su looked at the Empress with bloodthirsty eyes. Come, I'll be waiting. The purple lines on the Empress's face grew and receded several times. She suppressed the desire to fight in her heart, picked up a black box by her feet, and threw it with all her might. It shot behind the other party like a sharp arrow. Her other hand had already calmly picked up the remote control. 200,000 tons as a greeting gift, the Empress said softly. What is this? A letter of challenge? Imperial Prince Su looked at the Empress's actions and laughed. Then, at the same time that the giant beast under him suddenly roared, his expression changed and he suddenly jumped back. There were a few people who did the same thing as Imperial Prince Su, but more people didn't react in time. Boom! A fireball appeared out of nowhere and quickly expanded, as if there was a second sun hanging in the sky. Some of the Earth Spirit people and strange beasts nearby didn't even have time to scream before they turned into ashes. Imperial Prince Su only felt a sharp pain in his eyes, and he screamed in the air. The huge fireball almost turned his clothes into ashes, and his body was directly blown away by the shockwave. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky. This was the first time that the foreign races had seen the power of technology. Roars and roars sounded one after another. However, the Earth Spirit people were in a straight line, and their strange beasts were large in size. Not many people were affected in the core area, less than 1,000 people. Nearly half of them died on the spot and nearly half were seriously injured. Damn the human race, I want to kill her, I want to exterminate the human race. Imperial Prince Su crouched on the ground and let out a mournful roar. He originally came with a heart full of fighting spirit and wanted to kill the enemy who hurt his clansmen. When he knew that he was facing the human race, he thought that it would be an easy battle. However, he didn't expect that he would suffer a big loss as soon as they met. However, the sharp pain in his body reminded him that the other party wasn't as easy to deal with as he thought. Inform the rear team to stop advancing. Everyone be careful, retreat slowly and control your mounts. Don't panic. Imperial Prince Su's skin was almost burnt black, but after a while the burnt pieces fell off, and the flesh inside could be seen growing quickly. A few hours later, the dust settled and the situation at the scene was completely analyzed. Most of the casualties were Imperial Prince Su's personal guards. Although they were quite strong, they didn't have time to escape. Almost all of Imperial Prince Su's personal guards were dead or injured. Just this point alone made the flames of anger in his heart almost burst out. As for the huge giant calamity beasts, 3 were seriously injured and 2 were lightly injured. It had to be said that the giant calamity beasts had a strong life force. Even though almost all 5 of them were in the core area with their tough skin and strong life force, none of them died. It was terrifying. However, the one with the most serious injuries was almost burnt to a crisp, and its internal organs and bones were also greatly damaged. It needed a period of time to recover. The other 2 were temporarily unable to move due to their heavy injuries. As for the red shadow above, it had disappeared a long time ago. Your Highness, should we chase after them now? All of the earth spirits were filled with anger and wanted to slaughter the human race right now. Have the flying mounts expand the search area, rest for a night and set off tomorrow. Imperial Prince Su opened his eyes and gritted his teeth. Right now he felt that everything he looked at was illusory. That woman should be the strongest person in the human race. I don't believe that she can use such a powerful technique in a short period of time. We must catch her, send her to the altar, and let her suffer endless pain. Chapter 1198. My lord, there are 3 routes. Judging from the smell, they took the more concealed route. However, the other 2 routes have been destroyed and I suspect that the humans came through these 2 routes. After all, that small path can't carry too many people and can't transport supplies. The Earth Spirit's mount was a pangolin-like creature with an extremely sensitive sense of smell. If the Aboriginals hadn't destroyed the original route in advance and used some tricks, the route would have been confirmed by now. Where did that woman come from? The Sage King asked angrily. Although he wasn't dead, he was in a miserable state. A large amount of hair had fallen off, his body was festering and he was vomiting blood. This was a constant challenge to his nerves. It's that concealed route. The rest of you will split into 2 and follow those 2 routes. If one of them is fake, then the distance won't be too far. After confirming the authenticity, we will move forward together. Also, transfer 100 flying soldiers and 2,000 light elite soldiers to follow me. King Xian said angrily. My lord, there's no need to say more. It's just a woman. Even if she has helpers, the combat power of the abandoned races is far inferior to ours, King Xian said coldly. He tapped his chest lightly with his thick finger, and there was another twitching pain. Most of his chest was festering and it kept collapsing and growing. Their shared life force caused them to suffer more pain when they were exposed to the nuclear radiation. However, this was only temporary. After one night, King Xian estimated that it would take a week for his injuries to recover. Oh? Have they split up? The Empress sneered as she looked at the image on the screen. Although the people had been evacuated, they still made a lot of preparations in that area. In particular, some of the microsurveillance equipment was very difficult to detect. However, the disadvantage was that the signal couldn't be transmitted far. Fortunately, the hidden signal relay equipment hadn't been discovered yet. Even if it was discovered, it didn't matter. As they moved forward, there were other relay equipment ahead. How long until the landmines arrive? The Empress asked through the radio. The first batch has arrived at Aching Valley. It is estimated that it will take about 3 months to reach the designated location. How are the enemies? How was the effect of the nuclear bomb yesterday? 3 of the giant beasts were seriously injured and are recuperating at the Wall of Two Worlds. We need a larger yield. A 200,000-ton yield should be enough to kill them. As for the enemy leader, he's very sensitive to danger. He's only injured but not dead, so he's still with the army. Besides, it won't be so easy next time. It doesn't matter. We threw it this time. Next time we can bury it in the soil and put it in the water. Ren Baqin chuckled. It wasn't easy to throw a nuclear bomb in front of the other party, but it was too easy to place it in the path that the other party had to take. Let's lure them deeper and buy as much time as possible. I will have them set of traps and kill of the earth. Well, I will allocate a batch of 4th grade and 3rd grade crystals to your majesty. The following days will depend on your majesty, Rinpoche said. He felt a little helpless because he couldn't help much with this kind of matter. Even the origin crystals were the only batch left. Rinpoche said, I will send a batch of 4th grade and 3rd grade crystals to your majesty. The next few days will depend on you. Seeing Rinpoche's expression, the Empress said in a relaxed tone, Don't worry. It's just an earth spirit. The earth spirit didn't pose too much pressure to her. Even if she wasn't as strong as them, it wouldn't be a problem for her to leave. Moreover, there was the remains of the human emperor. The black sky god and the heavenly masters behind the earth spirit were the real targets. Both sides communicated for a while, informed each other of the situation and cut off communication. The Empress walked into the belly of the mountain and looked at the dozens of people hiding there. These people were big shots among the human race, but they could only hide here. Being weaker than others really made people feel helpless and resentful. She opened a map that included nearly a quarter of the 60,000 mountains, which was also the result of many years of exploration. Next you will head here. Your destination is the Gem Lake, the Redwood Valley, and the Burial Mountain. You need to make it look like you are going to stay there and pass through them. However, be careful because these 3 places are very dangerous. The strength of the ferocious beasts in the 60,000 mountains is at most a cardinal heaven expert. However, some areas created by heaven and earth are completely dead compared to the strength of the creatures here. Even Li Fu would be in danger if he accidentally entered. The Empress drew a zigzag line and then drew circles on 3 locations. Bring Roar with you. When you reach these 3 areas, you can use it to dig a hole and leave. Outside of these areas, you still have to evacuate normally and don't deliberately leave any clues for them. They will catch up. Roar was the Roar Emperor, but the Empress felt that its wretched appearance wasn't worthy of the word Emperor. Your Majesty, then you, the Empress waved her hand and said, I will keep a distance and watch them. With my speed, they won't be able to catch me. Don't say silly things like staying behind to accompany me. If anything happens, all of you will be a burden. The Empress's words made Hong Xian's face turn red. Study the map again and set off in a while. Oh? You found me? After everyone left, the Empress stood on top of a big tree. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly, revealing a cold smile. She drew an arrow and put it on the bow. The air parted like water. In the distance, a 2-headed dove exploded into a rain of blood. Following which, the Empress shot down 2 more flying beasts that were within range before she left unhurriedly. She was dressed in red and looked like a fiery red elf in the mountains. After that, the earth spirit finally arrived. Damn it, bastard. King Xian vented his anger and punched the air. A tall tree in front of him, which required 3 people to wrap their arms around, exploded into countless pieces. Chase. After chasing for 3 days, the anger in the Sage King's heart burned even brighter. He clearly knew that the other party was there, but she was like a shadow that he couldn't even touch or see. Instead, the flying mounts that he sent out to search for her suffered more than 10 casualties. How does she know our movements so well? Even the experts that we secretly sent out were all evaded by her. King Xian was still puzzled. If this goes on, she will always lead us by the nose. It's better to meet up with the army and go straight to the human nest so that she can't escape. The Empress sat on a branch and looked at the image in front of her. The army of the Earth Spirit began to stop and she began to think. They want to retreat so soon? This is even faster than expected. This enemy general was first angered and divided his troops. In just a few days he has become hesitant. It looks like he is a hot-tempered and rash person, but he is also indecisive. We need to add some fire. Chapter 1199. What has Hua been doing recently? Drinking again? Don't you care? The Empress looked at the screen that was divided into 8 segments while talking to Rinpoche about the radio station. Countless people were tuning in to the Empress's channel. You care if you can do it. Rinpoche spread his hands on the other end of the radio station. You should do it if you can, right? Everyone was reasonable. Then he felt that the air was a little cold. There seemed to be the sound of a breastfeeding creature grinding its teeth. Don't ask how he knew it was metaphysics. Ahem, Hua won't drink too much anyway. Rinpoche laughed it off. At most, it would just be a little too much. The main thing was that it was getting harder and harder to capture Hua. Currently, only Lin Xiaola, Xenjia, and the old lady in Qingxin Palace Hall who coughed so much that she almost vomited out her heart and lungs were at the cardinal heaven level. The former was addicted to sleeping while Xenjia was addicted to electric shocks. It was better to let the old lady in Qingxin Palace Hall enjoy her old age. But it's not a big deal. Erhua is quite popular among the people now. Ren Baqin said after some thought. Erhua often appeared on the streets and was the easiest member of the royal family for ordinary people to see. Of course, there were only 3 members of the royal family, excluding the 2 emperors who had disappeared and his brother-in-law who had also gone missing. In addition, Erhua was straightforward and chivalrous, so he had a good reputation among the people. Forget it. The Empress rubbed her forehead. She couldn't care less and sometimes felt helpless. However, no matter how she looked at it, Erhua was a small matter. They are here. The Empress glanced at the movement on the screen and smiled. Be careful, Rinpoche warned. I know, but we have to give them some hope. We have to pay more attention to the other side. The Empress ended the call and looked at a group of about 500 earth spirits leaving the campsite on the screen. She deliberately left some traces so that the birds in the distance could see where they were landing and acted as if they hadn't noticed them. As expected, the other side took action. Unfortunately, it's not time yet. The Empress felt a little regretful. Ever since she was born, she had never lost. She hated losing. She packed her things in her bag, only left a single chip energy detector on her left eye, and closed her eyes to rest. 6 hours later, it should be about time. The Empress listened attentively. After a while, she suddenly heard a faint sound. It sounded like a small nocturnal animal crawling through the grass. Here it comes. The Empress suppressed her desire to fight and continued to listen. After a while, she suddenly drew her bow and shot an arrow at the entrance of the cave. He burst out of the cave in an instant. Kill her. A figure shot toward the Empress like a cannonball, clearly intending to knock her back. Just as the Empress approached, she could already feel the sharpness of a sharp blade. It was as if the person who had collided with her wasn't a person, but a saber, a spear, or a sharp blade. Suddenly, a purple glow flashed on her face, and purplish-red veins covered her entire face, making her fair face look somewhat mysterious and wild. At the same time, a tall silhouette appeared behind the Empress. However, the silhouette was very faint, and one couldn't see its appearance clearly. They could only tell that it was a person. His fists were like guns and cannons as they smashed into the man's body. The man exploded into countless bloody foams in midair, but more figures pounced on him. The Empress rushed out of the cave, stepping on blood and flesh, and felt a huge threat falling from the sky. A huge palm that occupied a radius of more than 10 meters pressed down from the sky. Boom. The entire entrance of the cave was flattened by this palm. The Empress's hair was slightly disheveled. She looked up and saw a greenish-black arm extending from the void behind the palm. Black Sky God? Is there really a god? This thought emerged in the Empress's mind. Her body didn't stop moving and she continuously kicked her surroundings, causing bloody foams to explode around her. If you call yourself a god? The Empress didn't hide her contempt. The power of the other party's palm was astonishing, and it seemed to have wiped out half of the mountain with just a casual swipe. However, what surprised the Empress even more was that the other party attacked from the void. Otherwise, in terms of power, it wouldn't even be comparable to a nuclear bomb. If this was a god, then the humans on Earth could have called themselves gods long ago. According. Death. A deafening roar came from not far away. The earth was shaking. The Sage King was running on the ground, and the ground undulated like water. An angry voice came from the void. Boom. The Empress collided with the Sage King, who was running wildly. The Empress flew backward, spat out a mouthful of blood, and then disappeared into the night. The Sage King's arms exploded, but his flesh kept wriggling, and after a while, a new pair of arms grew out. For insulting the gods, I will definitely exterminate all of you humans. I will grant you the most painful death to appease the anger of the Black Sky God. Ha! In the night, the Empress flipped in the air, stepped on the air, and leaped a few hundred meters away. She only sneered when she heard the angry roar behind her. Enough acting. The Empress shook her hands, felt her chest churn, and spat out another mouthful of blood. Luring the other party over was the original plan, and getting injured was also part of the plan. Originally, she only wanted to deliberately get injured so that the other party would pursue her relentlessly. However, it seemed that the effect was better than expected. The only thing that puzzled her was what exactly was the Black Sky God. She had seen it very clearly. It was as if a hole had been torn open in the air, and an arm had stretched out from it. Interesting. If I catch one, that guy will definitely like it. Can I cut it into pieces? The Empress spat out a mouthful of blood and felt much better. The leader of the Earth Spirit clan wasn't very strong. He was only slightly stronger than the Empress. At most, he was at the peak of longevity heaven, and his fighting ability was even worse. The Empress was full of contempt for the fighting ability of the Earth Spirit clan. Even the people from Great Xia were far stronger than them in terms of fighting ability. This was the difference in fighting skills. Compared to the warriors, the Earth Spirit clan were like boorish men who only knew how to wave their fists. However, the Earth Spirit clan was rather annoying, and that was that they were very difficult to kill. Even if they were beaten to a pulp, they could regrow in a short while. Especially with such a high status, it was even more difficult to kill an Earth Spirit clan member under layers of protection. After dropping a few surveillance cameras along the way and resting for only 6 hours, the Empress found traces of the Earth Spirit clan from the surveillance cameras. They caught up quickly. The Empress was quite pleased. Her hard work wasn't in vain. In the next 3 days, the Empress fought with the Earth Spirit clan twice more. Each time, she escaped with injuries, and it seemed that her injuries were getting worse. Among the people from the Earth Spirit clan who chased after her, a total of 32 were at the longevity heaven level. Each of them had the ability to share the vitality of a ferocious beast. Even if they were smashed into pulp, they could still be resurrected in a short period of time. However, the Empress wasn't in a hurry. Very soon she would arrive at the first burial ground prepared for the Earth Spirit clan. Set a small target first, for example, 1 second. Remember, Bookhouse. Chapter 1200. The Gemstone Lake was half a month's journey away from the Wall of Two Realms. But the Earth Spirit and the Empress took 8 days to get there. The lake was just like its name. It was like a sapphire embedded in the green earth. Within 100 miles of the lake, there was endless green grass. Countless creatures lived there. She went around from the side. She's at most half a day's journey away from us. This lake covers an area of 100,000 acres. It should be enough for everyone to eat a few meals. There aren't any powerful creatures around, an Earth Spirit reported. Okay, let's rest here. 2,000 Earth Spirits and their mounts passed through the grass. They soon alerted the owner of this place. The Yong. It was a creature with a mouth full of fangs. It had a slender body and short brown fur. It looked like a gopher. Tisk, these little things are fierce. They aren't even enough to fill the space between my teeth. The Earth Spirits looked at the ferocious Yong that stood up from the bushes. It was less than half a meter tall, but it was bearing its fangs. After all, most creatures like beautiful environments. The Gemstone Lake and its surroundings were like that. They felt relaxed to have a place like this to rest while they were chasing their enemies. After a while, some of the Yong around them were eaten by the beasts. After all, the scattered Yong in front of 2,000 beasts were like elementary school students facing 2,000 fully armed soldiers. They were weak and powerless. No one thought much of it. 10 minutes later. There seemed to be more of those little things, an Earth Spirit said with a smile. These little things move in groups. It looks like there are many of them around here. But that's good. We don't have to find food for them. Many of the Earth Spirit warriors were delighted to see such a scene. 1,000 of them around? Just enough to fill the space between their teeth. 10,000 of them around? Almost enough to fill their stomachs. 50,000 of them around? Finally they could have a good meal. This meal could last them for 3 days. 100,000 of them around? 500,000 of them around? Their field of vision was filled with earthy yellow Yong standing on its hind legs. The faces of the Earth Spirits darkened. Let's go. It was too late to leave now. Within his field of vision, those little yellow things looked as if they were growing out of the soil, densely packed everywhere. The air reeked of unease. As it turned out, although these little things did not grow out of the soil, they had drilled out of the soil. The Gemstone Lake was their hunting ground. The large number of fish in the lake allowed these Yong to reproduce without restraint, and they firmly guarded this area. What would a million Yong beasts look like? How did it feel to face a million vindictive, iron-headed, and ferocious men? Even the Sage King felt his scalp go numb. Following the mournful cries, the earth seemed to surge with earthy yellow waves. Countless Yong beasts, also known as Yong beasts, pounced on the Earth Spirits fearlessly. Charge out. A ferocious beast slapped a Een beast to death and bit another, but very quickly, a second and third beast bit its body. As long as it was bitten, it would not let go. One of the beasts let out a blood-curdling screech as its entire lower abdomen was cut open and its intestines and organs were all pulled out. These little things were a little cute when they were quiet, but when they erupted with astonishing lethality and extremely sinister fighting style. Specialize in the bottom 3. Moreover, a considerable proportion of these young beasts were at the Kismet Heaven level, and there were even Cardinal Heaven level young beasts. 2 giant disastrous beasts were running and leaping, and almost every time they landed they would trample a group of young beasts to death. Even though their bodies were covered with these yellow little things, their teeth and claws could do nothing to the young beasts, and a path was made in the earthy yellow sea. However, the other earth spirits were not so lucky. From time to time, some earth spirits were drowned by this yellow sea. There was even a Cardinal Heaven level giant ape that had its anus burst, and its intestines were directly pulled out from its anus. The scene was extremely cruel. Damn it! The Sage King cursed angrily. He pounced and punched the surroundings as if a cannonball had landed on the ground, creating many deep pits. Countless young beasts were turned into minced meat. However, the young beasts did not have the slightest bit of fear, and more fearlessly pounced forward. The Empress sat in the underground cave and watched the scene of the war erupting on the screen. She was watching with great interest. A few winged cavalry warriors had set up camp at this gemstone lake in the past. When she was preparing to retreat, she had thought of this, and now it was indeed effective. Even though most of the young beasts were 4-way heaven level, with a small number of Kismet Heaven and Cardinal Heaven level beasts, as long as there were enough of them, they could cause great trouble for the other party. In particular, the young beasts were not afraid of death. Their fur could absorb force, they were fast, and they specialized in attacking their lower abdomens. Their combat strength was far beyond their level. If there were enough of them, they would be even more difficult to deal with. Even the Empress was not willing to provoke them. The Empress smiled and took out a bottle of wine that was wrapped in several layers of cloth from her bag. Now that the scene was clear, it was time for a bottle of erguoto. She thought about it and stuffed it back. This was the last bottle. It would be good if there was a 4th-dimensional pocket, the Empress suddenly thought. Even if there wasn't a 4th-dimensional pocket, it would be fine if there was a door to anything. The Empress twirled a handful of hair and used the corner of her eye to observe the battle on the screen. She carefully counted her hair. 1 2 1 2 1 2, an odd number. Even if I keep it, I won't be able to grow erguoto. I won't drink more than half a bottle. The Empress happily held the bottle in her arms. There was nothing more delightful than watching from the sidelines while the enemy fought a bloody battle and suffered heavy casualties. If there was, it would be 2 bottles of erguoto. The battle didn't last long. After about 2 hours, the young beasts had chased them for more than 15 kilometers. The Empress took this opportunity to leave. She made a detour and headed in the direction of the Earth spirits. In just 2 hours, the 2,000 Earth spirits had lost at least 800, which was equivalent to 40% of their strength. Nearly 20% of the remaining Earth spirits had lost their mounts. This was the result of the giant disaster beasts opening the way. These young beasts gave the Earth spirits from afar a big surprise. Damn bastards. King Xian looked at the many Earth spirits behind him and his face was twisted. He didn't expect to be chased here. In fact, if it weren't for these Earth spirits, just 2 of the giant disaster beasts would have been enough to flatten the entire area. Useless. King Xian panted and scolded. Then he ordered, everyone take a rest and recuperate. However, just as he finished speaking, an arrow pierced through space and blew up his head. Find that woman. The Earth spirits, who had just taken a breather, suddenly shouted. They had suffered such a great loss because they were chasing after her. However, just as they were out of danger, that woman appeared again. The flesh on King Xian's shoulder wriggled and returned to normal in no time. His body didn't move, and the exploded flesh and blood fell to the ground. Then, another arrow appeared in front of him and blew up his head for the 2nd time. I'll go after her. King Xian, who had recovered, looked ferocious. The veins on his body were twitching. I want to kill her, kill her. Ah! Chapter 1201. My attitude in admitting my mistake is very sincere. From March onwards, the updates became unstable. However, at the very least, I would be able to replenish 100,000 words by the end of every month. Ever since I was sealed and released, a string in my heart seemed to have broken. My condition had deteriorated severely. Other than writing the beginning of the anticipated new book, I didn't continue writing. The updates of the Empress's novel were also extremely unstable. Especially recently, I have been in a state of wondering who I am, where I am, and what I am doing every day. Last night, I wrote more than 500 words. In the morning I was still wondering what exactly I was writing. My mind was blank. Currently the Empress was finishing up the novel. Her original plan was to finish it by the end of this month. However, it seemed impossible now. She would strive to gradually resume updating the novel and finish it by the end of next month. Apologies for the recent updates of The Gigolo of the Empress's Family. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1202. Although I rarely communicate with everyone in the book review section or other places, I've always been very grateful for everyone's support. I'm just as worried as you are about whether this book will end badly or not. To be honest, I don't have the experience of finishing this book, and it will be very difficult to deal with the later stages. This is the truth. The original plan for this book was to be less than 3 million words, and the plot was to defeat the 10,000 races. As early as 2 or 3 months ago I started preparing to wrap things up. However, it was still quite difficult for me to wrap things up. As for the war with the 6 races, how many readers would be willing to read a war plot that was hundreds of thousands of words long? Including me, most readers wouldn't like a war plot that was hundreds of thousands of words long. That's why I didn't intend to drag out the war plot too long from the very beginning. As for when I'll finish this book, I'll decide whether or not to extend it based on the progress of the plot and the updates in the next 2 months. I definitely won't rush to finish this book by the end of next month based on the current update speed. Just now, I seriously considered deleting the new book that had already been submitted for review, and I'll release it next month based on the situation of this book. In the end, I discovered that I couldn't delete it. If I release it, then so be it. Fortunately, there were still some drafts for the new book. The new book didn't have much to do with the update status of this book. They were all written before the middle of last month, and they hadn't been touched for a long time. As for this book, I'll do my best to give everyone an explanation. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.